Yo, how are you doing, folks? Welcome to episode 66 of the Simpa Life Podcast. It is a special one today. It is one that I've been trying to put together, probably since episode 6, to be honest with you. He's been one of my ideal guests for quite a long time. We've chatted back and forth, but you know what the hell it's been like during this pandemic with all our different projects, with all our different forms of activism that we've been trying to explore in this new world we live in I'd like to say post-COVID, so I'm going to say post-COVID society. He is, he describes himself as a masked activist, an author, artist, and a movement. Ooh, we'll discuss that further. Best known for his outrageous and audacious public stunts and political activism, focused around cannabis decriminalisation, social injustice, homelessness, and questioning the government. He is, as I like to call him, the masked Mancunian Outlaw. How you doing, brother?
What's happening? You's all right?
Very good, very good. All the better for having you here, man.
I have to say, I said to you, I promised you I'd come on before the end of January, and here we are on the last day of January, but we're here.
We are. It's 7 p.m. The fine folks will be, I can imagine a few people are going to get this notification at about 10 to midnight tonight and go, go on then. We're going to give them some quality content over the next few hours.
And thanks for having me on as well, man. You've done some sick stuff on this podcast, so big up yourself as well.
I appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Thank you. Much respect. I suppose we'll dive right into this for people that kind of don't know who you are, maybe don't. I know there are some people out there sort of somewhere that maybe don't know who you are, but for those that don't, so could you tell us why and where and when, I guess, you first put on the balaclava?
So I mean, obviously I'm an activist, and I suppose I put on the balaclava for the same reason as everybody else. You know, I don't want to get caught doing what I'm doing. The first thing that I ever thought of for Outlaw was giving out bud, you know, in Manchester city centre. So I suppose wearing the balaclava, like at that point I thought, well, I'm going to get away with everything wearing a balaclava here. And I suppose up till now I have, but there's been a few run-ins with the law and that, obviously. But the main reason really was I'm not well known, but without the balaclava, and I'm already a musician. And I was coming up in the game, and my mate went viral on TikTok, basically, and all his music has gone mad, and he's quite well known now, and it's just a shit situation for him. Like, he actually doesn't like being well known, like quite a lot of people don't. But I suppose because I'm so close to him, I just thought, fuck any of that. Like, I suppose I could have done everything I've done without a belly on, apart from some of the defences, which we'll talk about in a bit. But it's not really an ego thing for me. Like, I'm not into all that, you know, patting me on the back all the time, and you know, I'll be outlaw when I want to be outlaw, and when I want to do. I nearly said my name then. That's how shit I am at live. I can be outlaw when I want to be outlaw, and I can be myself when I want to be myself, innit?
Yeah. No, I think we've obviously had conversations about this. It's quite a bit, and it is one of the main things you kind of hear from people. And we obviously had a conversation quite a while ago, and we said it's a juxtaposition of, I kind of went, all right, here's my life. And I kind of had no choice but for it to become my life, because I would have to put on a balaclava to not be Simpa. Do you know what I mean? So it's almost like you've kind of done it, I want to say the right way, and I've done it the wrong way. I wouldn't put it in such terms, but they both have different advantages and both have different kind of setbacks.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably easier for you to get a bank than Outlaw to get a bank, you know what I mean? But other than that, I wouldn't necessarily say you've done it the wrong way. It's just a different approach to it, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. And I mean, it's, I suppose, different climates as well, as we'll sort of explore further as we talk about the different forms of activism and the kind of sort of level of the stunts and the stunts that you've performed. That I think you kind of need that ability to take the mask off and you're anonymous again. Do you know what I mean? Especially with modern technology, with facial recognition, everything else. I mean, you were saying your first event was Manchester Piccadilly Square, wasn't it? Yeah. Dead center. I mean, that place has got to have a couple of thousand cameras kicking around it. And I can't see you having the same ability to walk away in the same way. So could you tell us actually how that kind of went down? Because from the video of it, you just you stand, you pull up your banner and just kind of start shotting weed. We're not even shotting, sorry, giving weed to people.
Yeah, not even selling it, man. Just Yeah, giving the bud out. Obviously, if you're looking under 18, I'm not really looking to, but there wasn't anyone. There was a guy with a kid, but I didn't give the kid any. But yeah, the video is just, I like to keep it, short on the video. This is what happened. You don't need to see, in my head, you don't need to see loads of stuff. But I mean, I got 2 taxis there. Even though I live in town, I'm still getting 2 taxis and switching it all up. I've got some sick behind the scenes footage, like I'm in a taxi taking all my COVID shit off, or at the time it was more of like a bandana, but now I just wear all the COVID shit. Bandana, hat on, and switch that over to the balaclava. I asked him first, obviously, and the guy's live. Like, that's kind of what Manchester's like a bit. Like the taxi drivers are they've seen everything anyway, So yeah, I jumped out of the taxi, walked down the road. We set up. I pulled up the banner. My mate's there as well. I give him an Outlaw balaclava as well. He's kind of holding the signs, and I'm giving out the bud. But yeah, I mean, I made sure I walked past the police when before we'd set it up. I got the spanner there and I saw the police at the other end of Piccadilly, and I thought, fuck, you're going to walk past him. So I walked right past him with the ballet. I've never been really out with the ballet. I'd done one more thing at Boots, literally the day before. I went into Boots with the sign, and the police were all fine with me. All they took was my stick off me, which I was holding the sign with.
Was that because it could be construed as a weapon?
That's what they tried to say, innit? But fucking, it had a bit of Velcro on the back so I could switch it.
That's fast access to a weapon. We've got to take that away.
So yeah, just got out, picked up the fucking banner, handed all my bud out. In case it went well, I had another guy to drop off another little sack, so we did drop off the other sack. Then we walked down the pubs and that, and just giving out weed to the world. That's not even in the video. I've got so much. This is what's been interesting about doing my YouTube, actually, because we've been looking through all this footage thinking, yeah, that's sick, but people haven't seen half of it, you know what I mean? But yeah, I went to all the pubs and gave out all the bud there with the ballet on, and then literally turned down the corner and there was all police. They were thinking we were going to go straight down the road onto the main Ancoats. There's like a main road in Manchester, well, Ancoats area, and it's quite a busy road. They thought we were going to go that way, so they were going to come up behind us, but I just split second said, right, let's turn down this little side street, turned down it, and all the police were ready, coming in from all angles. So look, I didn't even have any. I had one little bag left on me, just a little fucking, so I didn't have much for him to do anyway. And then yeah, just a whole load of shit went down. Well, like I say, all the charges got dropped based on like I was going to say to you before. The balaclava, why did I put on the balaclava? I didn't realise at the time, but if you imagine there's a character, let's say Donald Duck is dressed up, yeah, and he's giving out weed. So this is not necessarily what I do, just for fucking
hypothetically speaking.
Yeah, that's the one. So if you saw Donald Duck giving out weed, and then at some point, he just goes in this bit where he's not on camera, it's not on any, and there's a few other people there, I've got my camera guy, I've got my mate, I've got my couple of people just standing by, always. But if you can't see me going into that little bit and coming back out, you can't say that the person's not changed the costume, and the person that the police are dealing with at that point was the same guy that was giving out the cannabis, even though I've got the balaclava on with the fucking, so did somebody else at that point. So
you're creating enough of a space between the timeline and the sight line of this hypothetical character. So yeah, if Donald, looking quite dramatically like a duck, walked into a premises with several other people looking remarkably like ducks and took off his balaclava, there was no way to then prove which one of them was the one with the balaclava unless they then have to go to the forensics.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I thought at the start. And then on another time I got arrested, the police was explaining that he was watching me on the CCTV, and he says he saw everything. He said he saw all the maneuvers. So, but it's set times. Quite a lot of the time, it's just about accepting it, and whether I accept it or not, whether it's me, whatever. I wouldn't accept that it was necessarily me, even though to a point, if they had all the footage, they would be able to prove it. So then you've got to go down other defenses of. What was I even doing? Like, I'm not gonna get stopped by the police after doing what I was potentially doing, and just give everything up.
The image that was kind of going through my head there was the end of V for Vendetta, but outlaw balaclavas.
Yeah. I forgot. Do you know what? I've seen that film so long ago. They all on the phone or something?
No, the end of it, they're all put on V's mask and they all march and wearing the same guys, and everybody looks the same. And until they remove their mask, there is no difference. And it's kind of that harmonizing. I think it's one of the things that is powerful about whether it be intentional or consequential, if you're wearing a balaclava, is it is symbolic.
I think there was a stunt on YouTube as well, you know, where everyone wore the V mask and some type of phone signal happened, or maybe it was in a film and they were all wearing the V mask. I can't remember.
Yeah, Anonymous took over it as well as they kind of co-opted it as a symbol for a while. Well, the Warner Brothers copyrighted version, actually, quite interesting paradox between these anti-corporatists spending a shitload of money to make a certain company rich, to have a mask to hide their identity. Yeah, it's certain ironies. But yeah, I think that the symbol of outlaw, as it were, as you say, it means that you have the ability to be anybody. So it's the same thing we see of what do they call it? The blank mask of actors, you know, of mainstream A-list actors, and they have kind of neutral features, and it's the idea that you can then impose yourselves into them. You know what I mean? So it makes it easy for you to see themselves in you. So a lot of people can then see themselves as outlaw. Do you know what I mean? I think that is then acts as a point of inspiration to them.
A lot of people can be outlaw, innit?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Not just if they don't have to wear the balaclava, they can be, because I would consider myself to be acting, or even though I'm, you know, I'm not necessarily doing some mad acting and pretending to be a different person, but for the record, I would consider myself to be acting anyway, you know. It's
performative. Yeah, it's interesting. So this is
like I said to you a while ago. Do you remember when I said about Shameless? They were filming in the church area. And Frank, have you seen Shameless? Set in Manchester. Yeah, funny program. Well, it was for a few. Yeah, it's a good program. But they're filming in the church, and they've got Frank there, and he's all swearing and that would be a public order offence. But the police can't prosecute the fucking actor, you know, or they can't prosecute the character to start with. They're not going to prosecute Frank Gallagher, who's the main, you know, person in the show. So it's like there is, whether it's online or not, there are defences for, you know, just acting.
Yeah, exactly that. If you then think of what the modern movie industry is, it depicts murder, rape, serious offences. Yeah, as you say, on property in violation of civil ordinances and laws for trespass and things like that. So, yeah, exactly that. There is so much of that defence, and it's one of the first things that I came to, I suppose, appreciate about your form of activism. Is the power of the anonymity, but also the fact that it gives you a form of identity in that paradox. Do you know what I mean? In the sense that you are outlaw defined by your actions. You are not. There is no other peripheral information, which I suppose is kind of one of the reasons that I don't want to say you're Marmite, because you're really not at all, brother. But there are a certain sort of group of people that look at your anonymity and are very distrusting of it. And I can, in some ways, I guess,
you know, balaclavas have got a bit of a stigma.
Well, yeah, exactly. Most people see, I mean, you're not exactly the smallest of blokes either. So, I mean, you plus your bally and your puffer jacket. Would you call them bomber jackets, puffer jackets? What do we call them?
Whatever, yeah.
Whatever, I suppose, yeah. Call it a puffer jacket. It's a lot less dangerous than a guy in a bally in a bomber jacket. Yeah, we don't use that terminology in a high street these days, actually. So we'll call it a puffer jacket, yeah, right? So that I can imagine, yeah, it's got really intimidating connotations to some people, so that it's interesting that I'm thinking in my head there.
I suppose online, because I have to, sorry to cut you off, man, but I've been out and about so many times in town, and there's lovely old ladies that come up to us, you know, about, so what's this all about, you know, all that stuff. Like, it's nice, man. Like, no one from what I've seen has been mad. The people who are most scared of the police, literally.
Yeah, and as you say, that's because they don't know what to do about it. I mean, the image in my head that I was going to sort of talk out before was from the video of you handing out toiletries and stuff during COVID. And it is basically of a little old lady waving on a doorstep. You know what I mean? And it's again, I think it's powerful to reclaim that symbol, because anonymous shouldn't mean dangerous.
Yeah.
It shouldn't mean that you have to stand by everything. I mean, I hate this idea of it's the same as what is it? That if you've got nothing to hide, why are you scared? Of the idea that when we were discussing identity cards, and now with mandatory COVID vaccination passports and stuff like that, and the mandates.
Yeah, but I'm not scared. I'm not scared. It's like the Banksy would never be out in the public, like that type of thing. You're saying about inspirations before, yeah, but like I like what Banksy does. I rate his shit, but I'm, you can come and chat. I go around, delivering toys, and I chat to people all the time with the belly on. Like, it's not like I'm too asked about the public, knowing who I am. It's just for certain things.
Which it's leaving evidence for it. You know what I mean? Obviously, you want to be smart with the data trails and the paper trails, and I think that's smart, because the body of
also
work.
At the start of this, my other music project. I was not. I was managed by someone that, or like it was a thing, and it's not a thing anymore. But he wouldn't have liked my Outlaw shit, So. At that time, I didn't need my fucking name about. Now I'm not too arsed, but I'm not bothered either way. Like it's just for my defences and for if it for the police really, or them type of things. Hypothetically.
Yeah. No, I get that, man.
And I was going to say about that old lady as well on the video, like not necessarily her or anything, but a couple of. Older people took a bud to try when I was handing out them toilet papers. You know what I mean? Like the stigma of cannabis is, it's crazy. Like you wouldn't expect it at all. Like people are open to it. It's not like they're scared of the plant or the.
Yeah, things are really changing. I mean, when you were doing that, they'll have been locked in the houses for a good few months, and there's all kind of stuff coming out. Watching all kinds of different programs and seeing like cannabis being referenced in Coronation Street and shit like that. And then some nice young man handing out toiletries happens to go, well, we want to try a bit of this as well alongside of it. And I can imagine, what else are you going to do? I'm not getting out of the house anytime soon.
I didn't. It was written on the van. I just get into conversation. Obviously, if I'm giving you toilet roll, I'd say about 90% of them said, so what's all this about then? Maybe my daughter follows you on Instagram or whatever it was, and they've said that. And they said, well, what's that? It said it on the side of the van, weed and that. So he said, well, what's it? I said, well, you can have some if you want. And a couple of them said, yeah. And I wasn't expecting that type of thing. Even like it surprised me, I just thought I'd have it there because people kind of would come up to the van like they did and just, yes, Outlaw, where's the bud at? So,
yeah.
But yeah, it was nice to see, man. Like, this is why I'm trying to stop the stigma type shit, this cannabis.
Yeah. Man, I love your mannerisms in terms of the way you speak there. So weed and that, as you were saying it, I was like, right, in the future, Manchester-based cannabis home delivery company. Weed and that. So man, it's
it's got a ring to it.
Really does, really fucking does, man. I'm really appreciating the Northwestern mannerisms the more time I spend in Liverpool recently. Do enjoy just the way you guys communicate.
Liverpool's a good place, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So I think actually in that we've just covered quite a few of the other questions that are on my list. I will actually point out that you are second to only Tommy Chong in terms of the number of questions that I have actually prepared for this.
Oh man!
But I will tell you that we probably only got through about 6 with Tommy Chong because we just kept sidebarring so hard. He's got so many stories and anecdotes, and I suppose you do as well. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing what we get covered here, man. I suppose we've touched on it maybe briefly, but how do you fund sort of the public stunts and your activism? Because as people that don't know, obviously you've dressed up as Santa Claus over Christmas in previous years and given out quite a bit of money. You did a project with, was it Universal Credit?
Yeah.
Where you handed out, gave people back the 20 quid that was then taken at the end of the COVID regulations.
Yeah. Well, I fund it by my music royalties. I've got a lot of music out. I sell a lot of music to rappers and that under a different name, obviously not Outlaw. So the music royalties are the main thing. But I do have to say any extra help's good. Like I've got a best-selling book, so the Amazon don't give you any money really, even with it's a best-selling book in the law category. So I mean that little bit that comes in at the month is good. I got to big up the fucking patrons as well, or Outlaw members. You know, I think we get about it probably just covers the websites and stuff, but everything's just helpful. You know, any support, not necessarily financial, but any type of support. But yeah, funding it's more my music royalties or projects or beats that I sell, not always royalties, but music income really is what funds it. Because obviously you would know, activism doesn't fucking pay you any money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, boy. Yeah, if you're good at it, it makes you broke.
Luckily, I give out a lot of weed, but I'll give out a lot of weed, but I don't necessarily have to pay for the weed.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff is the stamps, you know, putting the shit in there and that. But the envelopes and the stamps is not as much as the weed that I've give out. That would have cost a fucking fortune. So I'm quite lucky to be in whatever position it is. Yeah, man. That sounds like you've got quite a network of people that obviously the help you were talking before of the cameramen and the additional people, with like drivers, etc. on the different projects and on the. I don't want to use the word stunts because it kind of sounds derogatory, but I suppose they are sort of stunts. It isn't a gimmick, but it is deliberately meant to stun in a certain way people out of the mundanity and the mono singularized track of their thought processes. They then see this guy juxtaposed of in a balaclava. You think thief, you think somebody trying to steal and acquire, whereas you're then acting as a Robin Hood. You're dressed as a robber, giving people shit. Just as a robber. But do you know what I mean? Because that's why people will put on a balaclava. I mean, obviously not. If you go skiing, you ride a motorbike, etc. I know there are plenty of valid. In a nutshell, people wear a balaclava to stay anonymous. Like I said, I do it for the same reason. I don't know what anyone else's intent is. Obviously, people do shit in balaclavas. You can pull up news articles and that, but I don't have the same intent, obviously, as anyone else. It's just, for that reason. And like with the funding stuff, I can, like I say, activism doesn't pay any fucking money. So I can confidently say, as acting, as the character of Outlaw, that I don't pay tax because my other music business that's managed by someone else and he's not going to pay tax. So we fucking pay tax. I get my wage as a real person, without the balaclava on, and I can spend that on whatever I want. So if I choose to spend it on fucking stamps and posters and whatever it is, vans and anything really, I don't need to be. That's my, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's not a taxable thing. That's my money from a different project. So I can give out as much cash as I want and no one can really ask any questions. Yeah, I suppose that's one of the things that I suppose a lot of people are quite interested in because I've seen some ranging from the ridiculous to maybe the curious screenshots and sort of images that people are sharing around in certain groups and in closed corners of the internet of sort of any firm or any company that's registered on Companies House with the word outlaw in it. So I just wanted to see if we see if we could clear the air on. I think there's Outlaw Designs. There was a firm that dissolved in August 2017 called Outlaw Legal Services. Are any of these affiliated to yourself? Well, Outlaw wouldn't be on Companies House. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Not after what you spoke of with all the character work and everything. Well, you'd be on Companies House if the business made over 12 and a half. Even then, I could be self-employed, I didn't invent the word outlaw, you know what I mean? People have called their businesses Outlaw Limited. That LTD thing, the people don't even know what that's about. That's something that I'll keep right till the very end and then I'll say if I want to say, but LTD doesn't mean limited company. That's an interesting one. All right. I take it you mean the end of your work here and not the end of the podcast. Yeah, not the end of the podcast. Sorry, I'm not. Damn it! All right, yeah. All right, fair play. I'll be back for that one. We'll sign you in for exclusive when you want to reveal your identity. We'll do an Oprah style. Yeah. So actually, I suppose that leads on to one of the I've got basically some of the questions that I've got for my audience at home. I want you to be
aware and informed. I have put out a few different sort of questionnaires, as it were. Like, I will have Outlaw on the podcast on different platforms. What do you want to hear? I've had them. Some of them I've omitted. Like one of my mates actually responded of asking what he had for his dinner. People then ranging to ask some quite ridiculous and rude questions that, I mean, we're a rude podcast, but I don't think, frankly, I'm going to put that into the airwaves. Maybe tell you about them ones later. But yeah, quite a few of them were around the other projects that you've been working on. So Outlaw Prosecution Services and Outlaw Legal Aid.
Yeah.
So I just wondered if you could tell us sort of a bit more about these projects and kind of what they get up to.
Yeah, I've heard when you were talking about registered businesses before, I've heard some people say that as well, mainly on Facebook and that, but fucking maybe 2 or 3 people about why is it not on a registered company? They're both basically charities, you know what I mean? If they were going to be anywhere, they'd be on a fucking, you know, some kind of charity thing, because they don't make money. Like, it doesn't profit anything. Both of the legal services, it cost me like quite a lot of money to run.
I suppose registering companies, as you were saying before, if it's Outlaw and Outlaw is a character and Outlaw doesn't then pay tax, the reason we register companies is for taxation. And
it depends what company it is, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean,
the less likely it is you're going to pay tax anyway, these fucking big companies.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And then we've all seen sort of the shell games in it and the ways you can incorporate and change status and various things. Like, it's all feels very convoluted to me anyway. And I think my instinct towards an answer for that question is that a man like yourself that has gone to the point of anonymizing and keeping your anonymity to the degree you have is obviously not then going to register a business with your real name that's going to be, I am Outlaw.
That's what I mean. Like,
do you know what I mean? It doesn't seem rational. So I think a lot of the people that are questioning using that as a potential base of evidence, or maybe, I don't
people like to feel like they've, you know, found something or whatever, like, or have got a different angle on it or whatever. And that's sound, but, you know, yeah, like you say, why would I register a business? You know, it doesn't make any money to start with. So.
Yeah, I think I can't remember, there's a concept in psychology, and it's basically that the more, I don't want to say confused, but the less information we have to make an informed decision, the more likely we are to gauge towards I don't want to say absurd, but the more extreme, the more novel. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think, is it called the Kruger Effect?
The Dunning-Kruger Effect is sort of about how informed you are on a subject and confidence over time. But so I'm sort of meaning that the less informed, almost the opposite, I guess, of the Dunning-Kruger Effect in certain ways, that the less information that you have on a subject, the more likely you are to keep, I don't want to say grasping, but reaching for answers and then going, well, is that it? Is that it? Is that it? Especially at a time right now with COVID and everything else, where we're quite clearly aware that there's a lot of bullshit going down. There's a lot of half-truths, a lot of misinformation, a lot of wool has been pulled over many eyes. And yet so you kind of become, I think, to some people, a microcosm, a way in which they can focus their energies and kind of go, well, let's reveal this, let's unwrap this mystery. It's a small mystery. It's one person. Who is he? What does he do? What is it? And I think that if people that then, a lot of your followers are not of that group of people that I feel come from a very betrayed legacy, myself included, that they've seen faux activists, they've seen people dressed in the garb of the hero and stand up on the mound and proclaim that we're going to go this way to victory. And then they've seen the community collapse. You know, they've seen infiltrators from foreign investment vessels. They've seen people from foreign companies come into the UK and promise them the world and imprison them. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it depends what community, innit? Because my community doesn't collapse, you know. Instagram can fucking shut me down. But, you know, it depends what scale you're talking. So repeat what you just said again, if you can.
Oh, God, yeah. Let's try and get me to remember that. Talk about putting me on the fucking
all of that.
I want a word for word. Go. No, basically I kind of feel that from the members of a community that have
the
defenders of cannabis that were stood at Parliament, that kind of would come from the club scene, that come from the vendor events, that kind of community of people that stood together at Parliament in 2017 and in early 2018 and were promised, self-identification. They were promised the right to grow their own. They were promised a different world. And then what came of that was the 2018 prescription cannabis system. It didn't serve their needs. It's enriched a handful of people. It's exploited them. It's left them feeling betrayed and underrepresented. So then when they hear your bravado, it's supposed, it's part of the character, you know what I mean?
Yeah, go on.
I imagine that you take the mask off. You're probably quite a humble guy, sort of chill. I'm not saying you're not with, but again, the character, it's part of I don't want to say a facade, but the guise that is made up that then this is Outlaw, and that's what gets the attention. That's what gets people to go, oh hell yeah, and to support the movement is that you are sort of terming that evolves from that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I think a lot of these people the movements they have followed previously have led them to dead ends. They've been betrayed time and time again. You
can't criticize what you don't understand. In that sense, like
you shouldn't. Or rather,
you definitely can.
You should be made curious. Anything that makes you go, there's something not right here. If something triggers that horror instinct, that belly to go, ooh, yeah, engage with the curiosity.
What I'm saying is, I would anyway. Balaclava straight away. Some people might do that anyway. Mine are like, if you're on the outlaw movement, and because I'm not just a cannabis activist, I'm an activist. It's not all cannabis for me. Some people are, some people aren't. They're good to everybody, but I'd say just stick with me, man, instead of trying to pull me up on company's house, like
like I said, it's just
because I haven't done anything really that has. I said I put my defense out at the start of January, and it did. I've said on everyone asks me for podcasts all the time, man, and I've said I can't. I promised you. I spoke to you at the start of Outlaw, probably when no one knew about me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah, man, I'll come on your podcast, but I'm already on. After I'd done the weed thing, I'm already doing this fucking. Netflix will speak about that in a bit, but I said to you that I was going to come on this podcast. And then at some point in our conversations, in the last few weeks, you must have got me on a good day because I said I'll come on before the end of January. But because I said that's what it is. I get some people that say they don't, they're not going to use the defense, because they don't believe it or whatever. Like there's thousands of people that message me saying how good it is. So a good 500. So saying you're not going to use the defense doesn't really matter to me in that way, and that's fine,
Yeah, I think that's more than evidence of the. Some people, I guess, have spoken as derogatory as calling you a con man, but then the thing that always struck funny with me with that is conning people into what?
What do I take from you? Is like I don't know.
It's voluntary. If somebody then chooses to buy your merch or to sign up to your Patreon, it's the same. Like, I have a Patreon. I wouldn't say that I'm funded by it. I still have a net loss every month, but it definitely makes that loss a lot easier to take.
Yeah. You
know what I mean? To run what I do, and it's the scale of the stunts that, again, I don't want to say stunts, the forms of activism that you engage in, they require good investment. They require good coordination. It requires money to maintain. So then anyone that wants to have their pie and eat it has never baked a fucking pie in their life.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think I don't mean to say that derisively of them, but I think that, I'm the same. I've got people that are then hating on me for saying that I'm egoic for what I've done here. And it's like, well, no, I've sacrificed many years of my life. I've put in a lot of work. I put on many events. I coordinate with a lot of people within the industry and in many sectors. And now I've kind of gone, if I brand it as the Simpa Life, it means I can sit with people like yourself, and I can have musicians, I can have comedians, we can have politicians, cops, and basically just anybody that is in some way loosely connected or associated to my life that I think will make an interesting conversation, rather than getting stuck in this echo chamber of just cannabis, because it's very hard to follow at the minute. Yes, there's a good bit of corruption in it. Do not get me wrong. We could talk for 12 hours on the corruption in the prescribed cannabis system alone. You know what I mean? So there are issues with it, but as these models and whatever adapt, we need to see how they fit into the bigger pictures.
Yeah.
And that's the same as I would say for people then kind of getting stuck into, well, why is the company's house thing not there? Why is this not there? Can we weigh it up with maybe a bit more of an unbiased mind? And I'm hoping, I mean, I can't.
Anyone saying anything to you like on the, because you've said Simpa Life and they're trying to say that's some ego shit, like they've got their own problems that they're probably dealing with anyway. So it's easy to go hard on them even in your own mind, like, oh, what's this about? But you know, people maybe look at you and want that, you know, want to have the knowledge and want to have this and that that they don't have. That they're trying to almost, you know, see themselves in you. And I've had people on fucking can't remember what it was, probably fucking Facebook, but there's a guy and he was saying, oh, you're so ego thinking you're a fucking superhero wearing a balaclava. And I thought, who's this guy? I clicked on his fucking name, and it literally, his logo, he has a fucking cape on. The guy's put a cape on his own logo, you know what I mean? So for you to say one thing, I've never thought superhero in my life, but he said it's come out of his mouth. It was on the tip of his tongue, and you know. That's a really interesting point. Again, another sort of concept through psychological study suggests that people will accuse people of the things that they are either inclined to or they're afraid of. So thieves see thieves. Do you know what I mean? Pedophiles see pedophiles. So you end up with this whole thing of people that will accuse others of being pedophiles or whatever. Oh, it's in with gay even. We saw this for a long time. They would always say the cliche of the young men that protest too much about being gay are often then turn out to be closet homosexuals. Do you know what I mean? And I think that there is then the same sort of thing. You've just spoke of it perfectly in that cape, so that he wants to see himself as that. So I don't know who this person is. I'm just speaking entirely as an armchair psychologist here. But they want to see themselves as that hero, as that person that is able to, in a moment, commit some act, whether it be taking off glasses or revealing their uniform or suiting up and then becoming powerful and dominating and ruling and controlling a situation. And so therefore they're going to see others wanting that in the world and assume that everybody wants that. So therefore, you've got to protect your energy in these types of things. You can't let it affect you too much. And like I was saying with that guy, there's another guy that will maybe say, he said something along the lines of, you're a coward for hiding your identity. And then he's also a so-called cannabis activist. You know, that I've forgotten all of the names, but I'll be able to find, I've got all the messages and that. Like, it's just a madness. I think, well, how you're hiding your identity, doing your thing, and like, good on you, you know, doing your thing, like, trying to educate or whatever. You don't need to come and criticize somebody else because, you know, why are you calling me a coward if your identity is hidden? You know,
it's difficult because I mean, I shared a thing the other day. You shared it on your story of I believe the ultimate kind of form of activism is to live the life you want to see in the world. You know what I mean? As Gandhi said, be the change. You know what I mean? And so even if I thought you were a coward and I was like, oh, why to come at you like that, I think negates the opportunity for us to ever have a conversation, for me to satisfy what is either a curiosity or, I don't know, maybe a trauma, or there's something else there, psychologically speaking, that is causing an issue, an anxiety, something that they are feeling they need to then project onto you and in some way, I don't know, put the emphasis on reveal to me your secrets. Do you know what I mean? You are this anomaly. You are this. So simultaneously, if they then see something and do something you agree with, you're this, oh, Outlaw, he's mint, he's sweet, he's great, he does this. As soon as you do something you disagree with, oh, he's a dick, he's rah. You become that talk.
Or even something they don't understand. It could just be something that they don't understand, and then suddenly, you know, you speak to two more people who are in your same community, maybe that you speak to every week or whatever, and then it just becomes like a kind of snowball of, right, let's look him up on Company's House now, you know, to that point of fucking madness.
Yeah, I try to remain objective in this, and obviously, as you mentioned before, we've spoken for quite a long time over the years with this, and plan to do this for quite a long time. And again, I do really appreciate you being a man of your word and sitting down before the end of January, you know. And it's difficult. I'm trying to remain objective, but obviously I've then been privy Again, for full disclosure to my audience, we obviously have spoken quite a lot previously, sometimes for hours at length on Zoom in same format. Obviously, you've remained in your anonymous state. But that has given me more insight into you as an individual. So the reason I'm asking these questions is I don't want to use that base of informity to then overlook the concerns of other individuals. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to make sure that.
Well, I have to say specifically on this defense thing, that I've put out, and that if you believe what I believe, it works. I specifically didn't tell you what was in that until I released it, and I wanted you to read it with everyone else. And your interpretation of that, I don't know if you're going to cover that later. We'll get onto that later, but it's when you read it and you understand it, and I can't make everybody understand shit like you, like when we're saying about these more negative people, I have to highlight it. So it's probably less than 1% of the fucking shit that I see. Like it's always positive normally. I think Facebook's a bit of a mad place, but other than that, we're sweet really. Like I say, it's a minor what anyone's thinking really. I know what I'm doing, and it's got to be true to yourself, and honesty is the best policy, and we just fucking move on.
Yeah. And it's, as you sort of touched on for a moment there with the defense, I think it's a good time to sort of go into that. It's when you released that, we spoke almost immediately afterwards, and I kind of went, I've got this. Is this blah, blah, blah? And you went, yeah. And so it's a difficult nuance. And I don't know, I suppose, do you want to, I don't want to say your piece, but do you want to explain it from, I suppose, the way you're going to explain it? Because it is your defense after all.
I mean, it's like I say, my supporters tend to like the madness, and I like the madness, doing the mad things, and the defense type of things. Whether people want to read it or not, and that's a different thing. But like I say, I'm always there to help people, no matter what stage they're getting involved in it. But yeah, I mean, I suppose it's the cannabis is legal part of it to start with, and then you get onto the defense. I suppose that's the best way for anyone that's not fucking read it.
So, how is cannabis legal?
Yeah. Well, it's sometimes it's easier for me to say, well, change my mind. Obviously, I know we've explained it. I've explained it to you before, but if you switch sides for a sec, you try and convince me that it is illegal.
Cannabis is scheduled into the 1971 Misuse of Drugs Act as a Schedule 1 drug with a Class B penalty for possession, cultivation, and distribution.
Yeah. And then, how are you normally prosecuted for cannabis? Is it under that, or is it under the 1971?
Yeah, that's the act I've just read, the 1971 Misuse of Drugs Act.
Right, yeah. So, and then 2018, about the medical.
Yes,
you know it all better than me, all these dates.
Yeah, so in 2018, November 2018, they changed the regulations under the 2001 Misuse of Drugs regulations, creating Schedule 2 for cannabis-based products for medical consumption, cannabis-based medicinal product for consumption in humans.
So that now means that, like, the cannabis isn't illegal. The actual thing isn't illegal, cannabis. It's the circumstance or the way in which you're using the potentially controlled substance now. That's what we're left out there, isn't it?
So so let's role play then. Yeah. I'm a copper walking in a room. You're sat there with a piece of flower, cannabis flower in front of you. Yeah, and I come in and go, whoa. That's a drug, son. That's a drug. That's as per Schedule 1, 1971 Misuse of Drugs Act. I'm arresting you on suspicion of possession.
Well, I would say, based on what I believe, I'm not unlawfully in possession of a controlled substance.
Okay, so then in this role play, I suppose the officer would then be like, well, how? What do you mean? Can you prove this?
Well, can you prove that I am?
Oh.
I don't have the burden of proof here, mate. But carry on.
Okay. So immediately there, I suppose let's pause the role play for a minute to analyze this for the audience here. This would make a really good infographic if somebody wants to do this on YouTube at some point. I was kind of saying that to yourself. I should probably will. Something we can do as a project.
We'll just stick it on there.
So then at that point, what we're basically stating here is the burden of proof falls on the law. For all that officer has come in, he may be considered by the CPS to be a cannabis expert. I'm air quoting there for my listening only audience, because he has previously identified cannabis successfully twice. Yeah. So in his eyes and in his nose and in his right, he's seen that is cannabis. That's an illegal thing. That is enough evidence for me to arrest you, detain you. So then as soon as you state that, the emphasis is then put back, hypothetically, in the situation on the officer to then go, well, wait.
The officer that arrests you is also the expert in the drugs.
When it comes to the prosecution, so the CPS,
in court, they get a specialist in, But we're talking point of, having the bud on the table. We can go on the court.
The evidence. So I was sat in Crown recently, and so the evidence that is presented, the way the CPS presents it, the arresting officer and their details are then presented as would be the witness drawn in as it being identified as cannabis for the initial detention. So you have we can prove that as one stage. Then as a secondary stage, they can bring in a accredited cannabis expert witness. Again,
that's what they need to do. That's what they need to do.
That's what they have to do to then prove which schedule it is. So this is, I'm currently, to not name the individual, but helping figure out that difference, that nuance right now. Because it is that juxtaposition, that paradox between it being Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 under the two different acts. And so, you're putting onto the officer the emphasis that they've got to understand which one it is. But the issue a lot of people are having with this defense is the officer's not accepting that because they don't understand the law change. They don't know.
No, that's not the reports back that I'm getting. That's quite a lot of them. I'd say about 60-70% are going to the police station, either getting bail or an immediate no further action. But if they're getting released on bail, they're getting a no further action pretty soon after. And the other ones are getting acquitted in court.
Yeah, but my point was there, so if there's any confusion, was that they're still being detained. They're not being released at point yet. So it's still then having the...
People get detained for shouting at a police officer, even though it's not. It's just the ego side again of the police officer. You know what I mean? I'm not saying they're not going to detain you, because police need educating, and we're going to try and work on that this year. But the main thing for me was just getting based on what I believe and based on what other people can believe as well, by saying that line, because it is all backable up, if that's a word. It can be backed up.
It's evidenced and provable. So I mean, this is the interesting point. So to go back to our role play, so that officer then doesn't know the nuance that there's cannabis. A lot of people are falling with your defense or with this defense, failing because they're then jumping and adding more information. So instead of what you've then done in our role play, which is state that the burden of proof isn't on you. I mean, some people you can state the same as no comment. That is not to be prejudiced and taken against you. If you say no comment to an officer, they're not supposed to take that as an insinuation of guilt.
Yeah, no, they're not supposed to. That's the officer, though. But if it gets to court and you've said no comment,
you've got nothing to rely on in defense.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this is why the sentence.
That's why all I say is what I need to rely on.
Exactly, and this is the nuance that people need to understand: is that people can't come to you or seek this knowledge retrospectively and then go, well, I said this and I did this.
Yeah, I can't tell someone to say something anyway. I can't say this if the police. All I can say is if you believe what I believe based on what I've researched, you can also say this.
Yeah, so it's an active defense really, and it's valid. And so this is what I think people need to understand in this language. I think some people got a bit frustrated by this idea of, what do you mean belief? But then if you sort of look into the nuance of it, a belief is then an understanding through information. So if people then look at the information that you've provided, that others have provided, shout out the See Our Future crew, the We the Undersigned team, many of the people that have been providing and building this activism over decades, all of that together would give you a point of information that would mean that you believe that this cannabis doesn't meet the scheduling criteria of Schedule 1 misuse of drugs, cannabis under the Murder Act. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so,
Also, you can't accept that I wouldn't accept that it was necessarily cannabis. I'm not going to accept anything from the point of what I've said. And I'd also say with any document you read online, mine included, everybody's included, I wouldn't challenge the law in court because from what we've seen and the development of that, when you stop challenging the law, it's more favourable.
Entirely. I've sat as Mackenzie friend through magistrates and been in Crown, and I've seen the contemptuous way the judiciary and the CPS look at the audacity of individuals to challenge the law, and it's not. I think it's called
challenge the law as a defense. You should be able to.
I think it's called the Colson Protocol. Somebody called me up in that in the comments below. That I think occurred in the 60s. I think I was speaking to some barrister the other week. I was speaking to some barrister the other week, and I think that's what he called it. And it basically states that, as an active defense, you cannot call in to disrepute the law. If you then believe the law to be wrong, you can't then break it as a rebellion against it. You have to then challenge the law through the judiciary. But you can't do that
without having any charges outstanding.
Which is
your own legal action.
Yeah, which is then difficult because then somebody like yourself that then comes to this point of belief through sincere informant, like you've gone and sought information and educated yourself, and you are sincerely of the belief that that isn't cannabis as they know it to be cannabis, and that you are not in possession of an unlawful controlled substance. And I think that
not unlawfully in possession of a controlled substance. So, which could be, if you've got a medical prescription, you're not unlawfully in possession of a controlled substance, and if you're in possession of hemp, you're not unlawfully in possession of a controlled substance, or whatever, like a pineapple. This is what I'm getting at. Like, a pineapple is going to be seen as illegal. Well, illegal if it had fucking cocaine sprinkled in it. You know what I mean? Cactus plant isn't illegal unless you sprinkle some cocaine on it. Then the plant will contain a controlled substance, and you'd be in possession of it.
Yeah, it just made me think of this story I saw the other day. Was it 20 tons of coconuts? And what they've done is they've liquefied the cocaine and they injected it into the coconuts.
Yeah, they're clever, aren't they?
Mad, man. Prohibition breeds ingenuity.
Yeah, prohibition problems, man.
Right, so where we're looking at some
like
of these.
I say, knives aren't illegal. You know, what you do with a knife is illegal. If you're cutting some bread, you're all right. If you bought a knife from Sainsbury's and had it in your bag, a Sainsbury's bag, that's not illegal. It's circumstantial. It's based on what you accept and that. But not that I don't condone carrying a knife. And
again, it's about sort of the circumstances, as you've sort of stated there. There are circumstances where you can lawfully possess cannabis, then they've got to prove
it's illegal.
Yeah, they've got to then prove that what you were doing in that specific circumstance beyond reasonable doubt in a court of law, if you've then provided your own defense successfully leading up to that point. So it's not a case of throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. The more information you provide under interview, folks, the more they have to build a case against you. Always remember that. But then always remember that anything you are going to rely on as an active defense, should you move to prosecution, you need to have planted the seeds of. So in some
say it in court, they get adverse inference, and then pretty much everything you say isn't believed. Then they just draw an adverse inference. You didn't say that to the police. You're not using it now. Don't believe him now. It's dead.
And saturation of defense will make it very difficult for them to accept a final defense. You can't give them like 6 defenses and go pick one that works.
I mean, I just accept nothing and dispute anything that I'm unsure of. Literally, that's what it is. I'm not assisting a prosecution against myself. Do you get what I'm saying? Why would I do that?
It's this weird thing of we're taught seemingly through
Your way
media.
out of it or whatever.
Yeah, so we're taught seemingly through media that we have to incriminate ourselves, that we have to purge ourselves before the judiciary and beg forgiveness of this system. And it's not. I mean, as I've told you privately, I've told this anecdote quite a few times on the podcast before. One of the former head of cops of Durham, when I sat down with him and had a meeting with him, the last thing he said to me was, "You know what, Simpa? There's only one crime in this country, and that's getting caught." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I get it." And it's you can see.
I used to work in a theatre, and the the child, I can't remember what it's called, CBR check, I think it might be. I had to get one of them done. I was on the sound. And the whatever it's called, CBR check or whatever, the guy came in from the company or whatever, asked me some questions. I answered the questions and that. And he says, right, yeah, sound, yeah, you've got your fucking thing, it'll be in the post or whatever. And I said, right, yeah, sweet. And he says, yeah, that just means you've not been caught. And I was like, what? I had to go and tell the fucking, I said, whoever this guy you've got in, yeah, he's a fucking weirdo. Like, just based on that comment, like, I was not feeling that type of shit. And he's the guy testing if people get a child, whatever, if they can work in a theatre with fucking kids and, you know, everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, it could always be just their dark sense of humor from working in the industry, but at the same time, it's yeah.
If you saw the guy and that, he probably said a few more. I thought he was weird to start with, but when he said that, he said it like, you know, fucking like, I thought, you can't get away with saying that to many people. Yeah,
well, you always got to trust your gut around sort of people and yeah, so listen to those instincts. And yeah, we're seeing more and more the layers and levels of corruption. I mean, one of the things I did want to ask you about actually was policing. I mean, we've seen recently the Met Police and Partygate and sort of its links to, it's alleged links towards organized criminality within various police forces around the UK, and it hints at a collective conspiracy of criminality going back decades across the country. And so you highlight this in sort of a project that you did that I think was maybe misconstrued by some people, a police website domain that you established. Yeah. Could you tell us a bit about that?
So yeah, the police website was not a hack. And I watched a lot of domains. Basically, how it started was I wanted the universal credit domain. But then I started watching quite a lot of them for when it expired and that, and all the best ones weren't really expiring. But the .org, the police in the joining the police.org.uk, that was expiring soon, and I don't know if they didn't want it anymore because they did have the .co.uk anyway. And when you typed in the .org.uk, go back to that one. I think that's what it was. But either way, they might not have wanted it, or I put a what. But these domain providers let you fucking they send you enough emails and that. So I just thought it would be funny to take a copy of their website, you know, and put some true video on there, you know, not necessarily saying that I did it. I think that's what we'll say on that. But yeah, it wasn't a hack.
All right, no, thanks for clarifying that, man. Yeah, because that was one of the things I saw. It was a point of sort of contention, and I think what people need to remember is, especially given,
didn't say it was a hack, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was the term you used was takeover. You took over the domain, which is entirely factual. You waited on a domain, you acquired it, and it's the same as like the Simpa Life. I have the simpalife.com and .co.uk. I think I have another one as well, which I just kind of sit on, just to kind of stop people getting to do adverse things with. Most companies online these days will buy up several of the suffixes of the ends of website domains to kind of avoid copycats and controversial sort of issues. So I think you highlighted the point, and it was a good form of activism, and but it's going to be dressed to a form of pageantry, and I don't mean that derogatorily. I mean in the form that it's an act to a certain degree. It's still activism, but there's still a form of that is act, as you say, that you have to. Again, as I alluded to earlier, not that it's necessarily the bravado, but you amplify the character. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what makes it more entertaining. You know,
it's the type of shit I would have done without the belly on anyway, just for a laugh with my fucking mates. But because I've got the fucking outlaw thing, whatever, you know, movement, you know, all of that going on, I thought, well, you know, if I'm going to do this, I'll put outlaw on it. And then it's like with my music now, you know, I'm releasing music on my other side of things, but I'm going to bring that to outlaw as well, you know, because why not? People will want to hear some activism music and that. So yeah, let's get into it. Well,
interesting. I mean, I've been thinking for a while. I quite like to do a spoken word piece over some backing tunes. So maybe we could do like a mashup.
Little intro one.
Yeah, a little project. I think we can come to something.
Like a little radio type style thing at the start.
I like the sound of that. So I'm just gonna catch up with my rather large list over here. We've covered quite a few of the subjects already pretty well. So I suppose, have you ever been sort of arrested and convicted? I mean, you spoke of before a CRB check, so I guess you passed that. But with what you must have been, how many times have you been detained doing this?
Yeah, I was going to say arrested and convicted are obviously
very different things.
different.
I've been detained for being a dickhead. Like I used to do a lot of free climbing, parkour, and I used to do, well, currently a lot of drugs. I used to drink a lot, so I'd be very well known to police, but I sit here with no convictions. So yeah, I suppose different topics, but quite interested in both answers.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've been arrested a lot of times. I've never been convicted though. So yeah, that's a good thing. And anyone obviously involved in Outlaw hasn't been, convicted of I'm talking photographers and shit like that. Well, not anything directly to do with me, I'm saying. Nothing to do with Outlaw,
That's good. That's good. Because I was thinking of that actually, with the size of the team that you might have on some of these excursions, should we call them, whether any of them have then got, because if they can't identify, as we spoke of, let's call it the Daffy Duck defense, of him, Daffy Duck walks into a bar sort of defense, that if you then do that they couldn't then still go for the driver or go for somebody else on different sort of grounds,
Yeah. I mean, you are. It's normally just me and my mate. To be honest with you, my mate wants the camera for me, and then I go out. I've got a few people that I know, just keeping an eye on it, but the police aren't going to know about them anyway. That's just if anything goes a bit fucking whatever.
So yeah, that reminds me of something else that I saw that at first I didn't quite think was linked to you, but then there was a certain few keywords that really jumped out to me. Was it Range Rover, balaclava, media equipment? And I was like, that sounds like Outlaw. So yeah, can you tell us about this madness?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to tell you more than I can, but the highlights for me are getting a complaint upheld successfully from wearing a balaclava type thing, £14,000 worth of compensation. I've not accepted that, but that's what would be awarded. So it was a fuck up on the police's behalf, but it's not like I can't say too much, like I say, but the main parts were we actually got arrested for public order. That's what it was to begin with for ages. Then it got upgraded to terrorism because, let's say, the team, the driver, the photographer, there's only two people involved. Both of them didn't give their names, basically. So it got upgraded to terrorism. That's when they decided to tell the press. And the team got released at about 3:00 in the morning. And the police told the press at about 8:00 in the morning that it wasn't terrorism related. So that was just a madness. They could have, put it to ease a lot sooner than that. And then obviously BBC got in contact and they put out that article, musician stopped in a, whatever they said, illegally by the police or whatever. So yeah, just a madness really. Like I said, I'd love to say more on it, but I can't really say too much about that shit.
Well, I'll share a link to the BBC article you referenced, and so there's enough on the public record, I think, for people to get a good idea. I suppose given that there's still some active nature towards it, there are certain things I suppose you can't really comment.
Outlaw can claim £14,000 for that. That's, so it's not one of them things that I'm gonna want to risk or So yeah, I'd like to talk more on it, but I can't.
No, I get that. I respect you giving us the answers that you did there. I suppose I wanted to look at the legal claims and stuff that.
I have to say as well, what happened anyway. Like I've told you.
I know, and obviously I'm not really.
These type of things can be used, in the wrong ways by the fucking authority people, and that. So we're not.
I get that, and if you don't want to put it on the record in this circumstance, I'm going to respect your privacy and not do the same. You know what I mean? It's the same I'll do with any other guest. I'm under several NDAs for various things. I'm under just privacy for friendship, of camaraderie within the community. I know a lot more things than I make public, and I think that's some for the better good of myself and my community, but also I think some for the better good of others. And that's not to say that I know anybody to be any vicious or dangerous people. That's to say that we're all human, and yeah, man, and we're all in a point of living in a kind of like living out a game we've not chosen to play. Do you know what I mean? And so there are certain, even just sentences that can end up in the wrong hands can get you in trouble. So we're in a world where we're forever recorded and documented, and so yeah, got to be careful.
What I was saying, it ties on nicely to what I was saying about police CCTV footage. If you're arrested for something and you're going into court, you need to request that footage, because they can clip out whatever they want to use. You know, they don't. You can stand there in court and say, "Well, that wasn't the full conversation." The police will say, "Well, that's not the bit of evidence that I want to submit." You know, if they want to cut out like a certain bit, obviously there's got to be a bit of context involved. But yeah, like things that you say can be used against you in mad ways. But
massively, it's something I do worry about with this podcast. Is probably a couple of just in my life in general. The past 7 years, you've probably got tens of thousands of hours of me talking all kinds of shit that at some point probably will come by to bite me on the ass. But I believe in defensive saturation. There's enough there that's going to cause me trouble, but there's enough there that'll get me off. I just need to figure out how to order it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think it's exactly what you spoke of before, of only really speak of what you rely on in court. And that isn't to then say be too much of this kind of hidden and obfuscated away from your own community and life and hiding away. You can live kind of both worlds. Do you know what I mean? You just got to learn to be quite smart with it and know when to be loud and when to be quiet. I mean, with your defenses, if people can really get their head around how to nullify effectively a possession charge through belief, then it empowers you to be able to then be a bit more bold, to then as an individual commit forms of activism of sitting on a park bench and having a joint and engaging with the people who go, and are disgusted. Go, well, why? Do you want to come have a chat about it? Like, did you know cannabis does this? Did you know this? Do you know what I mean? Being a champion for the cause in that way, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's about empowering people in a certain way to not be mad. You know, you don't have to do anything that you see anyone else doing. It's just about a little bit about protect yourself, innit? You know, someone said be a master in the laws you're going to break. Like, I'm not saying anyone's breaking any laws, but you should be really, you know.
Yeah, I think it was. And
especially with the acquittals, like there are acquittals for a lot of stuff. There are acquittals for, you know, things that there shouldn't be acquittals for, like the murders and the rapes, man. Like you should be getting acquittals. So why not use some the starting points of what any good solicitor would do? You know, did you read me my rights? That type of stuff. For cannabis offences, it seems the cannabis, it's just they try and funnel you down and accept this, instead of, you know, using the starting defences of criminal liability, you know. Rights, and can he prove in court that he even did?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, there's so many nuances and different checkpoints, I suppose, before you would arrive at a point of facing potential prosecution for an offence that the layman, the average individual, is just not informed of. Yeah. We're not privy to these £200 an email conversations or these £500 an hour conversations. You know, the networks that have been built, I think, for all intents and purposes, the privatization or the commodification of the judiciary system, as in solicitors, barristers, etc., has meant that justice, air quoting justice, for the average person is out of reach. They simply can't afford access to it. So they think their best hope is, I'm caught. Yeah. I need to now get the less as possible. They don't even think about defending it. They go, shit, if I admit I'm bad and I'm sorry immediately, maybe they'll go light on me.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I've said. People at the point of the police, you know, saying that, claiming that your substance is whatever they believe it to be, they're already going into mitigation, you know, saying, oh, well, it's for medical conditions. Have you got a prescription? If the police even know that there's such thing as prescriptions. So people mitigate themselves. Obviously, like I keep saying, I can't tell you what to say. I keep fucking up in this. If there's a few cuts, it's just because I keep saying the wrong thing. But you get the grasp of what I'm saying. People mitigate themselves at the point of the police contact. You know, they don't say, well, you know, prove that it is unlawfully in possession of a controlled substance. They say more along the lines of, you know, oh, it's my friends, or I've got medical conditions or I've got a prescription. And then you might be at the point where the policeman says, well, the police might know or not know about prescriptions. And if he does, then it's going to be, well, can I see a prescription and all this stuff? In every case, if you believe what I believe, saying I'm not unlawfully in possession of a controlled substance, that makes it hard to even prove that you were. And like some people say, the best way to explain it is by to see it in action. And I've been doing a lot of recording in Manchester with the police, just literally showing them stuff. You'll be able to see it on the YouTube, but showing them stuff and saying what I tell people to say, and doing it with a few officers to the point where they're just fuck off. Like, they know that police aren't in general, they are bothered about weed because they kind of have to be. Some aren't, and they still are. Some let you away with stuff. There's like a lot of different police, but when they know from the start of it that they're really not going to get a prosecution, you're not stabbing their ego because you're arguing with them and saying, look, you're saying a quite a simple sentence. If they don't understand what's going, the sergeant can come out, and hopefully the sergeant will know what's going on. If not, you might get arrested. The law hasn't changed. There's just a way to not be prosecuted based on the facts that the government have given us, not any other science, or just the government facts. The status of cannabis, like I said, you can wear a hemp t-shirt, so that is cannabis. So the t-shirt isn't illegal.
Yeah, there's so many other things that could be ascribed to be cannabis that are not scheduled. So then it falls into a nuanced conversation about the compounds within it. But if then you retain your defense as only stating that you are not unlawfully in possession of a scheduled controlled substance, they can't really prove otherwise. It becomes incredibly difficult to do so, and then it becomes a
based
point
on what you say. Like the defense isn't even, I'm in possession of CBD, or it doesn't contain this. You don't want to give them anything that they can disprove. Yeah.
Yes, but that's very hard, because what happens there is people then are going to get nervous. People are going to get scared. That cop's then going to go, oh, well, this young'un, and he's talking. He's not even talking shit. He said this thing, but it's this thing, and it goes back, and the desk sergeant goes, well, actually, there's jack shit really we can do here. Go press him. Go interview him. Go, rile him up. Go take his socks. Go do something to provoke a response that he's going to say something that we can then prove and disprove. You know what I mean? And that's the thing.
Not all police are like that, but there are a lot of police like that, and that's
for the record. I will agree there that. Not all cops. That sounds very like not all men. As a response culturally, but yeah, it's
we'll go with. There's a lot of police like that, but we're not saying all police are like that. But So Go on, what you say?
Yeah, so I was gonna say it's fair comment. I agree with. But regardless of whatever situation that individual,
I'm mainly saying that as well because the people that we've helped and the people that have, who've been acquitted or who've received a no further action, both of them are wins to me, basically. But out of those people, it's not been really that bad, it's not been that bad for the situation's not been crazy. They've not tried to take the phone or seize the stop their bank or some shit. It is based on the people who do it correctly, and it's not about arguing with the police in them situations. Like, if you want to do that, go into town like what I've been doing with fucking knowing where you're at and go and argue with them that way. Yeah. Don't do it when they think they've got the upper hand or when you're under caution, because in the street you're not under caution. You can say what you want to them and that, but when anything that you say is going to be used against you, and you must say what you're going to rely on in court. You don't have to, but if you do say it in court, it's not going to be accepted, so there's no point saying it.
Yeah, it's going to reflect quite negatively, as we sort of spoke of earlier.
Yeah. So there's different attitudes you've got to have with the police depending on your circumstance, innit? You know, if
I was going to say,
not condoning drink driving either, but if you have, you're probably better off not arguing with them and just, not accepting anything. Definitely not if you haven't been drink driving, but or under the influence or whatever it is, you're better off not fucking arguing with them. But when they can use what you're gonna, if after the point of being arrested, I mean.
Yeah. There's always this thing of we're almost indoctrinated through modern media, TV shows, film, etc., to give a mitigation in evidence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sort of while we're sat in interview, sorry, and it is this weird thing. You see it constantly, and it's mental to go. Well, no, you know everything, and your brain goes to, oh my god, they're gonna find all this stuff and all this and put all this together, and you're like, no, that they're one person, that this is the first interaction they've ever had with you. They have whatever they have to their immediacy to be able to prove whatever they currently have. As you said, the less they have, the harder it is. But the more you give them through trying to mitigate and go, oh, this and this, and you create these tapestries of lies. As soon as you're lying to them, you lose credibility. You lose credibility. Your defense loses credibility.
As soon as they can prove that you're lying to them,
Yeah, exactly that. And so the less you can provide was sort of, I guess, embodied in the anecdote you told before of the interaction with the sort of the terrorism charges.
Like when I've been chatting to police, they can't tell me why cannabis is illegal by the end of the conversation. They can't tell me why it's illegal. Some of them have been actually educated, and it is. A lot of police will say at some point for these cannabis ones, they'll say, well, you do understand, or somewhat along them lines of, you do understand that it's illegal or whatever it is. And once you accept it, it's hard to go back on that.
Exactly that. The structure of arrest, of detainment, of prosecution, all of it, as we said, in tandem with that media kind of indoctrination, makes it, most people think as soon as the handcuffs are on, they're done. That it's almost like it's over, it's all over, and they're thinking of every crime they've ever done and every bad thing, every sin, every morally questionable and ethical action they've ever committed in their life. And like you said, it's then they only know what they know in front of them and what you've already provided. If you're going to remain calm, and again, it's difficult because I know a lot of
points with even accepting it where, sorry to cut you off again, but I just can't remember what I would have said. But there's certain points with accepting where they can't proceed with the next step, and that's quite an important part I wanted to focus on. The accepting it part is everything, and I'm not telling you not to accept it. I'm saying don't accept things that you can't be sure of. That's what any good solicitor will tell you to do. Dispute things that you can't be sure of, and don't accept it, because once you have, it's like a slippery slope to climb. You know what I'm saying?
It's kind of like locks, like water locks, for boats. So once you go in and it's up, you can't really get back down. The level thing's locked behind you.
And without each level, you can't skip to the fifth level. You know what I mean?
Exactly that. So this is
accept that, and then accept that, and then they get the forensic or whatever it may be. But you can't skip these levels of accepting it, basically.
Yeah. And so this is sort of empowering the common man. So I suppose this comes on quite beautifully to the prosecution services and the legal aid, as we were speaking of before. You've published some figures which are available on your social media, which we'll link to below in the bio. I just wondered if you could sort of elaborate on them a bit further.
Yeah, I mean, a prosecution service is Outlaw prosecution service and Outlaw legal aid are two different things for anyone who don't know. The prosecution service is suing the police. So there's a lot of requests for that, but it doesn't really cost that much money, because it don't cost anything, because the solicitors who we use, they agree to a percentage or whatever they're going to get for the work that they're going to do. I don't see any of that. It's just a discussion between the client and the solicitor. And I think they kind of focus on the video footage ones at the moment. I'm trying to work on getting because a lot of people don't have video footage, but I'm not fully in control of it all. I've left a few people to get on with what I'm trusting them with, but obviously so the prosecution service isn't really what I want it to be yet. To be honest with you, it's great that people are uploading footage and suing the police successfully, but also a lot of people, you know, that they've not got the footage and they're uploading, and kind of a lot of people that are working with it at the moment aren't doing it without the footage for whatever reason. Maybe it's the price we've negotiated, I don't know. But so yeah, prosecution service is, you know, it's there, and it's good if you've. I'd recommend recording the police anyway. To be fair, I should have said that some point in this interview. Record the police all the time, man. Like, very important that, because you might have you might forget shit in the heat of the moment. I've done that, recorded the police and arguing with them, and I think, yo, check what he's fucking said at this point. You know, them ones. So yeah, that's the prosecution service. It's good if you got footage, and probably someone will represent you. It doesn't cost me anything, which is great. And yeah, that's how that is. But the thing I'm most proud of is the legal aid, which is basically, I only have one solicitor that I really trust, but he obviously works with a load of solicitors. So, you know, loads of people can be appointed for loads of different people. But I've paid for the services, which has helped and acquitted or no further action about 200 people now. So that's what I'm really proud of. But I have to say, there's been like about 5,000 requests of people who haven't had help yet, because literally it costs a lot of money. And it's not something, I'm proud of it legally, but it's not something I want to do forever, because it costs so much, and all I want to do is get as many acquittals or no further actions as we can, and then start appealing some stuff and get a precedent that everyone can use without me needing to, you know, pay for a solicitor. I don't want to be lying in the pockets of solicitors. But at the moment, for me to help as many people as I want to help, I've got to, you know, I wouldn't be able to do it all myself, man. Like, so that's where we're at there. Like it's like that sorry post to put out, man. Like, I feel bad for people that, you know, maybe apply for the help and don't get it, but it's a tight budget. You know, it's a lot of money, but it's still tight for 5,000 people. That's crazy money for representation. But hopefully, I'm doing what I can for those people anyway by trying to get these precedents this year, and giving them, you know, not whacking my defense in a book or anything, you know, putting it out there and see how you defend the possession of cannabis.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I just need to make a note of something that just reminded me of. So it is. So it's an interesting point where it's language, it's nuance. So I think it's almost there's a trifecta of approach here. So it feels like the legal aid is then gathering enough acquittals or no further actions, or ideally, a full acquittal is basically you've gone through the ringer and the system's gone, no, you're right, the law's wrong, but you're right and you're fine.
You don't necessarily have to go to court as well. Quite a lot of them are in court, but some of them, they do get them, you know, without going to court. They bring the solicitor. So like with the police, they go, when you're being interviewed, based on what you said, they will 9 times out of 10 just ring someone, you know, CPS type thing, get onto the CPS, and the CPS will know, right, is that all he said? You know, well, that's how the no further actions are coming now, when you don't say anything apart from what you believe, you know, it to be.
And what you would require later on should they seek prosecution. I mean, it's so limited with COVID regulations and restrictions. I mean, the backlog, I mean, I read oh my God, see how fast things are moving. March last year, there was 450,000 backlogged cases in UK courts. That's only going to have increased and got worse, because you know what they're still doing? Arresting all the people smoking weed.
And it's going to get even more clogged if no one's accepting anything.
Exactly that. And if they then want to seek it, I mean, it then falls back to this kind of postcode lottery, the 43 constabularies, and how hard they want to go, because about 10 of them have got a checkpoint diversion scheme, and 9 times out of 10, if you admit guilt their way, they'll only give you, it's not, they consider it an out of court action, but it does on an advanced CRB check count as a conviction. So you won't be told that it's a conviction, but it can still hamper you further on down the line. No. So it's a case of whether you want to accept guilt or whether you want to challenge it. And if you then want to challenge it, the challenge is not to challenge the law, which is the instinctive thing to do. And I can feel you out there, guys. I can feel you all being like, well, no. But that's the activism in this sense, is that
do that in your own court case, like build the evidence.
Yeah, do that after the fact to sell what you did to get out of that. If we nullify it, we can still have an attack dog running around the yard. All we're trying to do here is file down its teeth. We can't get rid of the dog yet. We can't petition the owner to change the rules of the yard and get rid of the dog, but we can stop him from fucking biting us. And the way we do that is exactly that. You go back to, I don't know about, I'm speaking of my own class and my own sort of upbringing, is the cops were kind of the enemy. You say as little as possible. You know what I mean? That was how I was raised from a young, and it was the weird paradox of people that I kind of spend my life with now that were raised to the police are the guys you ring if you have an emergency. It's like,
yeah, but
no,
still,
they're not. They're the guys that cause the emergency. So
yeah,
it's like
in that aspect, like emergencies aren't really solved these days. I don't think personally, and I can say this, I don't think they do much for the you know, emergency solving. It seems a lot of fucking bullshit.
It's stage management. It's the illusion of safety, as Tyler Durden points out in Fight Club. You know what I mean? That it is this structure, a pageantry that we then go and work through this performative piece of going, well, we're all playing our part and our guys. And it's like, well, this keeps us. And it's like, no, you're all just part of a larger game. Do you know what I mean? It's whether you're being conscious to that and knowing that actually, all right, if I know this, I've looked at the law and I've come to this belief that cannabis, as I know it, that I have it, if I even want to call it that, in the presence of the police.
Yeah, that's it, substance,
yeah, exactly. This plant, this thing, that whatever you choose to define it as long as it's not disingenuous. You're not lying to yourself. You're not misrepresenting the truth necessarily at all. That is not the arena to die on a hill, because the more evidence you give them, the deeper under that hill they're going to fucking bury you. So we have to learn the subtlety and soft touch.
Yeah. You're not even telling them that the plant is not a controlled substance. You're not even saying, you're saying you're not unlawfully in possession of it, so it can go a load of different ways.
So I suppose
that's why I chose that. Another reason why I chose that to be the wording of it, because it does apply to everybody. You know, the prescription people, the medical people who haven't got a prescription, who can't afford one, and all that shit. You know, there's loads of different categories of people that it applies for. You're not saying that it's not a controlled substance, even though you wouldn't say it was necessarily, hypothetically.
It's a fun game having to speak this legalese. I mean, obviously the actors on the other side of the stage, because ultimately we are in this pageantry, they're well rehearsed, they're well versed in their lines, they know this game. We're very new to this. All of a sudden, what I really appreciate about your work, and the thing I think we agree with quite strongest on this, is the nuance of language. And it's something I've championed for a long time, is that if we don't own our language, if we don't understand it and understand the, for lack of better wording, the spells that it casts, then we're going to be hypnotized and piped by their narrative, by their story. And it's one of the things I appreciate that underlies, I think, quite a lot of your other work, is you're questioning government, you're questioning intention. Do you know what I mean? And I think that a lot of activists that are then focused on cannabis get solely, myself included, I suppose, for quite a period of time, stuck down in the nuance and the politics and the vastness of cannabis as an activism scene.
I mean, that's where it stems from, isn't it? The government, they're the what do you say, imposers, upholders, whatever you want to call it, of this fucking pantomime misusage of that, you know, court system, the guy with the wig, and he's waiting backstage and he comes on, you know, it's like, I used to work in a theatre as well, and it's like, fucking hell, like, I can see how it's just all playing out. You go into the court and the sets held onto the court, you know, like all the woodwork and that, it just looks like an office room when you're waiting. It's a madness. Like, people are understandably tricked by the illusion of the yeah, man, let's carry on.
Yeah, so it's an interesting situation that we find ourselves in, and there are pockets of activism within not just the UK, but any region and territory in the world that have gone, all right, let's go attack the politics. Then there's a bunch of people that have gone, let's go, I'm speaking metaphorically here, not physically attacking. So finding ways to find weak points in legislation, in lobbying governments and politicians, trying to change the legislation. In the same way, there are other entities that are then going, okay, let's try and nullify the police and look at fallibility in the law and ways to nullify charges and to protect people from a grassroots point.
Yeah.
And there are others that have just gone, well, let's just build it anyway. Let's just do it. There's coffee shops, there's clubs, there's all kinds of organizations, events, and kind of gatherings in this country that are considered, well, highly criminalized, but they are highly civilized, I would say.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing that
Gotta step careful, man. Like, like people are on some mad shit. I'm talking that higher up, past government, and it's like we can get deep here, can't we?
There's nothing, we could do some. I mean, I'm probably gonna try and start bugging you tomorrow to book you for the next one. But yeah, there's definitely a whole narrative that we could go down there of these organizations. I mean, there's a really interesting video, and if you want to check out, guys, Navarra Media did a deep dive into Met corruption recently, and they talk about Freemason links of the police and systemic corruption. It's quite interesting for something that, for, I suppose, legal reasons and personal protection reasons, since I'm not wearing a balaclava, we're not going to discuss over the next hour. But yeah, good deep dive into that, folks. That's an interesting thing to look. I might share the link actually in the bio below. But I suppose this brings me on to another point that I wanted to discuss, which is, some people say obviously there is a connection between sort of poverty as a tool or a weapon of the elite. So universal credit, when that came to an end, I saw you put universal discredit. You went and put up one of those street signs you modified.
Yeah, I think I said universal criminals. I said.
Nice.
Yeah, universal criminals, man. Like, taking that for at the worst time. You need to, if you're not seeing the video does it better explanation than what I'm gonna. But the articles of news clips that I collected, man, like, so many people were like affected just by this, like, quite a small amount to some people, but it's massive amounts to people with kids, and that it's just fucking peak, man. So yeah, like you say, I gave out some money, but I gave out £5,000. That's like 20 quid to 250 people, and there's thousands of people affected by it. I'm kind of highlighting it without doing nothing, and doing what I can. That's all I can do, really. I gave out more than £5,000 because obviously when the video came on, a few more people messaged me, and the ones that I've seen, I've sent to. But I'm not a government department. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what these guys should be doing, man. But fucking they don't. So highlight it and give some money back and hope that it helps it. They've been cut. I think it's 20 quid a week, and I gave them a single £20. Like, everyone was grateful. Everyone was mad grateful, and that just shows you how fucking little respect the government has for the people. In my opinion, like, like the government doesn't like you. The government hates you, innit? Like, fucking,
man.
Or a lot of people anyway.
It's a very small club of those same elites, and without going into, again, too much of a deep dive, maybe corrupt elements, the people that shake funny hands at various levels of institutions, of industries within this country, that have created a small cabal of people that are like vampires, the energy vampires, the asset vampires, the financial vampires. They're just sucking the life force out of this country, creating a fiefdom onto themselves, a space that is their own personal kingdom, and we become the serfdom, we become servants to them. And I think a lot of the work that you do highlights that, whether it be this handing out money to homeless individuals. I think, again, it is very a direct hand to the individuals, in the same way that you did with the toiletries to the people during COVID. Is you do a lot of work to highlight sort of structural inequalities, and a lot of the videos you make really draw attention to these things, but still the direct, as you said, that £20 into somebody that lost £20, you've at least for a week meant that they were where they were. That £10 to that guy on the street means that he's not going to have to go, maybe, I don't know, find a fix, find a drink, find some food, like, have to find money for those things, rather. You know what I mean? You can make a choice, at least for that moment. Do you know what I mean? And it's for all, it's not a permanent action. It's a gesture that is supposed to inspire others. And I think that's what people forget with activism, is it's not just, he's Outlaw's got it, I can sit on us and it's fine. As you've said before, you can help 250 people directly with 20 quid. That's still only 250 people. That's like a bus. Do you know, it's a double decker? I don't know what the capacity is. Maybe 2 double-decker buses. You can tell I've never been a bus conductor. But it's a large number of people, but in the percentage of people, as you said, of the millions of people that have been affected by it. And so that is hopefully then for others to then look at it instead of them wasting, I don't want to say wasting time. It's everyone's prerogative to do whatever the hell they want with this life, and all power to you, and bless you. You're welcome to it. But I then feel that somebody then looks at the work of, I don't know, anybody that's doing something in the public sphere toward the end goal of inspiring others or motivating them to, in their own way, not copy or emulate, or maybe emulate to a certain or lesser degree, but mainly be motivated and inspired to find their own way of helping. And if everyone helped 4 or 5 people around them, there'd be fuck all to do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But if everyone's waiting on a messiah in a mask, to turn up and resolve this, then they're going to be sorely disappointed, because you are not a superhero. You are not Superman. For all I joked about the V for Vendetta, putting everyone in a balaclava, even if we did that, we're still not going to quite get there. So I think the idea.
And I'm like everyone else, man. I'm limited by my money. Whatever sales on the beats that I've had, and that's limits what I can do completely. You get people saying, mainly on Facebook again, man, but fucking the homeless stuff, give them food instead of money. I don't know about any of that. We'll get onto that anyway. But
I was gonna, in that sense, give them fucking options. And the best thing you give them is a fucking look in the eye and say a word. You say humanize. Remember, they're a fucking. But don't put your privilege, your fucking idea of moralizing it onto this individual. Remember that they're you, but for circumstance, you, but for birth, you, but for economics. And when you see that, you can then ask them, do you want some drugs? Do you want some money for drugs? Do you want a drink? Do you want some food?
We all buy drugs.
Yeah, exactly that. Whether it's caffeine, whether it's sugar, whether it's fatty foods, we're all engaged in some addiction cycle of something else. And to moralize that over somebody else and to create a hierarchy based on this foreposition and justification of legality using these Misuse of Drugs Act. I'm sorry, you're on the wrong side of history. You're on the wrong side of morality and decency. You need to question yourself. Yeah. If you've got a beer in one hand and a tab in the other, and you're going, these dirty potheads, these goddamn smackheads, these crackheads, if you're literally spousing this hate speech, you're losing your humanity, man. You need to sit down and have a quiet word with yourself. We're all victims of the same game. There is one oppressor to this, and it is an elite ruling cabal that we've alluded to in this conversation. That, again, for, I suppose, personal safety reasons, we'll leave it at that, for now.
That with the homeless, man, like you say, people have opinions and all that, but you're on the wrong side of the. I think you're on the wrong side of the thing if you're saying stuff like that. Like I say, I give away to homeless all the time, like when I'm going to the shop, when I'm fucking walking home, anytime I see homeless, I give to the homeless. I make these videos genuinely to inspire some people. So they see me giving away a load of notes, 10s and 20s. You think, right, do you know what? I'll give my £3. Some people might look at £3 before that and think, I'll give them £1. Give them what you can in it, really. But I just do the bit. Yeah, I don't want to spam people with like I say, I'm an activist. I don't want to spam people with, I could record homeless every single time I give out to homeless, and there'd be a lot of fucking content, but I don't do that.
It's the part. I think the point is, and I think a lot of people get it, that it's as we said before, it's to motivate and inspire others to do the same. I mean, the thing that really got me for a while, I suffered with, is a point of, I guess, vulnerability for all you fine folks at home. I suffered for quite a while with this kind of sense of shame of seeing homeless people have not quite known how to engage with them. And it wasn't really until I was at a music night in the Vaux, pick up the Vaux in Brighton, on the coast front. Yeah. And I'd eaten some particular slightly larger than Tic Tac looking things, and was in a very jovial, dancey mood, and kind of danced myself out the door. I was, kind of found myself waiting for first train back at around 5:30, 6. It was probably later than that, actually, around 6, 7 o'clock back into London, and then work my way back north. And I basically wandered around with a pocket full of money and some weed, and was just in such a and everybody I saw that was out, as in out on the session, intimidated me. But everyone that was stooping, everyone that was chilling, was the homeless, and they were a different kind of comfortability. And instantly I kind of vibed with them, and I kind of went round and just went, well, I've got this extra money that I don't need for the night. I'm literally going to get on a train in 2 hours, 5 hours later, I'm going to be home in my bed. Do you know what I mean? So it was like, I'm going, I've got a bit of munch. So I'll go get a drink from this place. Someone's outside. What do you want, dude? Do you want a Subway? All right, sweet, we'll get Subway. What do you want in Subway? Do you know what I mean? And then just sit and like knock a bit of spliff with them and literally be like gurning my face or chatting shit. And it's the trade. I'll trade you a sandwich and you give me some of your life story. I'll give you some of mine. We'll just be two dudes sat on the thing. Our home status is irrelevant at that point. We're two people that are listening to each other, looking in each other's eyes, hearing each other out and responding to each other on that reciprocal level. And that is far more valuable than any note you could give them, because they're going to find that money anyway. They're going to live regardless. The human spirit.
You're going to get the drugs regardless. You know, everyone can say everything, but it's that, like, I don't put any of that in the videos, but every person that I speak to, man, like, I'm with them for at least 20 minutes. And the ones where I'm booking them into hotels, I'm with them for even longer, man. Like, I spend fucking ages with them, and like we're saying they and that, but like, you know,
you're saying as a collective term, not as a disparaging term.
Humans, like, just like anybody, like literally anybody can be unfortunate enough to be in any position. And like I say with the videos, I don't want to spam people with it, and but I'll put it on I want to make sure that there's something for people to see, to be inspired by, because if people didn't message me or comment saying, you know, oh, it's inspired me to do this and do that, I'd probably stop doing it as much. But because people genuinely message me saying, you know, it's inspired me to do this or this or that, it just makes sense to every so often just record like what. But I give away loads to homeless. I just don't record it all the time. And
yeah, I think it's good when you do it as Santa. I think it kind of reminds at that time of year for people, when they're of generosity and that gifting spirit, that there are more people than in their immediacy. There are more people in their family and their loved ones. There are other humans that deserve, to be. I was going to say a victim to their joy and generosity, but that is the weirdest phrasing my brain has ever thrown out there. To be. I can't actually word it. I don't know what I'm looking for there. Yeah, victim to joy. Take my joy. Yeah. So it's.
I mean, they are a victim of the system, aren't they? You know.
Indeed. I think that's maybe where my brain was stuck with the term of a victim in that sense. Yeah. So I think we've covered most
projects that I'm actually working on. It's going to be out by summer. It begins with H. So look out for that. I can't say the name for some people, but it's a project for the homeless, and it's for permanent housing, and it's literally everything for, you know, a few homeless people, and we're going to document it and really show how someone can turn around with just a little bit of, you know, support and financial help and education. The slightest bits of whatever they want to do, and I think that's going to be really, you know, powerful for anyone in the government to see that and think, well, fucking hell, we spent trillions on apps that don't exist and this and that, but it'll be a good argument point, because it's not, it is a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, what the government have got, it's not a lot of money, you know, to pay someone's rent for 6 months, get them address, get them on universal credit, because, you know, other people aren't, homeless people can't, because they've not got an address, then they've not got a bank and all this madness. So get them an address, get them a bank, get them on universal credit, get them a bit of education, get them a job, whatever job that you know they're passionate about, or a way to carry on funding, being part of, you know, if they want to do that. You know, I'm not forcing anyone to do anything, but I think a lot of people are, like I said, victims of the system, and the system isn't really there for people.
Yeah. I mean, I've been arguing for people for quite a while that I think, for example, the NHS should grow weed. I think it should grow pharmaceutical grade, GMP, highest quality cannabis in the world. And if you want to use whatever you want to prescribe. But the rest of it, you sell to the Ruz lot, and we can do what we want with it as adult consumers. And you use all of that money and you fund it back in. And as part of that, we would recognize that homelessness is not necessarily a failing at all of the individual. It is a failing of the establishment to understand the needs of that individual. So once we could then create space within the health service to have a department of prophylactic, you know, preventative medicine that isn't just based on a corrupt supplement or holistics market, you know, I'm just going to park that as a generalized thing over there. We'll maybe come back to that later in the comments if somebody wants to later. I know what I'm saying, but it's a lot to elaborate. I'm not being negative in my connotation there. I just mean in terms of there are elements of it that have been corrupted. So yeah, if then part of the NHS or the government had this agency or entity that was there for prophylactic around mental health, so a lot of people end up in homelessness due to loss of a job, breakdown of a relationship. You know, these things are then often contingent around a dip in mental health or physical health, or in a sudden change of circumstance.
Or just, yeah, that's what I was going to say, relationships, man. Like, quite a lot of people I speak to, it's literally just a relationship thing, you know. And they sometimes they've been homeless for 2 weeks and they're hoping that they won't be the next week. Like, some of these people haven't been just on the street for all the time. But like people say, you know, going straight into the pockets of all this shit, and like it just don't make sense because those types of people don't go around and talk to the homeless and or the rough sleepers who aren't actually homeless because they have a home according to, you know, anybody else, but according to them, you know, they're homeless because they're sofa surfing, and you know, it's not somewhat for a place like England, it's not right, really. That's all it is. If we weren't in England, maybe, you know, there'd be other problems to it, but we're in quite a rich fucking country. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's not homelessness and destitution in the extremity of the developing nation, but it is then a preference to not be in a destructive or negative, potentially violent or volatile situation. So to be in a family home that's, you know, breaking down through divorce, that's then aggressive and violent. You know, a young person may choose to not avoid that situation. You know what I mean? I ended up sofa surfing for a while, but then lost my mainstay location, and then for a while it was touch and go. You know, I spent a few nights in doorways and had to learn some tricks to then actually, what I was doing was just staying awake during the night and finding spots to cabbage out during the day. But then your whole life, you can see how life breaks down without the smallest parts of support. And it's actually not even often financial. Like I said, it's compassion, that if you then kick a man when he's down, he goes further down. It's harder for him to get up. They're human in general. Do you know what I mean? It's once you can change that attitude, I think the same is true of cannabis and a lot of the other injustice campaigns that you kind of work on, which brings me to another point that I really wanted to make sure we get in this recording, was your thoughts around a defense for the allegation of driving under the influence of cannabis.
Yeah, so driving under the influence of cannabis is a tricky one because obviously it depends on your circumstances, because I think everybody who's been through that knows that fucking DVLA and the Road Traffic Act put together, they're a fucking nightmare, man. If one of them's not fucking you, the other one probably is. You know what I mean? But all I can say is, you know, same again, what I would do or what I have done based on my circumstances. And I'd always do a saliva test. I think I can say peroxide, hydrogen peroxide. Yeah, you can have a mouthwash with hydrogen peroxide in it, a can of Coke and some mints, and sometimes you're not even going to come up on the saliva test. Sometimes they do false positives anyway and all that shit. You know, obviously if your car smells of weed and that, they're gonna try and search your car and all this shit. But there's an argument to say the smell of cannabis isn't grounds for a search based on that alone. But in a car, it's common for them to make up something. I kind of don't want to say what they make up. You can imagine what they make up and what they say. But I don't want to say it in case anyone's listening to shit, or like I don't want to encourage any fucking police to say anything. But you know, they can't search your car based on the smell of cannabis, is what I think. That might not even be legally correct. But yeah, like I say, I do the first saliva test. I may or may not have mad washed my mouth with some low-grade hydrogen peroxide. I'm sure you can find them fucking tutorials on YouTube. So if I don't pass the saliva test, because, you know, sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it'll come up with a false positive, they're going to take you in, they're going to ask you for blood, and if you're scared of needles, you know, you tell them you're scared of needles and don't say much else. Like we said before, you know, say what you rely on. That's it. You know, you don't need to start challenging the law in the police. But, you know, we know that we can smoke 3 days ago and it's going to come up in your blood. That's like facts, fine. But That's not in the law. So it's never helped anybody. We've tried it, you can still do it if you want, but it's going to be used against you that you started arguing with the police or whatever.
Which you're going to argue from a point of guilt. You're going to, as soon as you argue, you've admitted guilt, and then you've kind of screwed yourself from the get-go.
I mean, for these minor, I'm talking getting pulled over by the police and you've not done anything wrong, genuinely not done anything wrong. If you've had a mad crash, in some cases, they can get warrants for your blood anyway, so I'm talking about a situation like you said, you get pulled over, you might have had a spliff a couple of days ago, your car smells of weed still, your tongue test comes up for whatever reason, and from that point, if you don't do the saliva, you'll get failing to provide. If you don't do the tongue test, which is the saliva, sorry, you're going to get failing to provide. And if you don't do the blood test without a reasonable excuse, you're going to get failing to provide again. So
I suppose it's not necessarily an excuse as it is a viable defense in the law.
It's a reasonable excuse. So the charge, if I'm scared of needles, which is, no one can prove whether you're scared of needles or not. If you've got a needle phobia, that's it. You've got a needle phobia. It doesn't help if you've got loads of piercings and loads of tattoos and that. But that is still arguable based on your situation. That's not extracting blood, and it is a different thing. And if there needs to be evidence submitted to prove that it's, getting a tattoo and getting your blood taken is a different thing, then you can provide that evidence. There is evidence available there. But like I say, I wouldn't argue with the police. I'd tell them I've got a needle phobia because that's my situation. And the tongue test can't be used in court. The tongue test is the saliva thing they scrape on your tongue.
It's an indicator, but not a measure. So because it's not a measure, they can't actively charge you, because it's not even impairment anymore. When they changed the Road Traffic Act a few years ago, for you find folk out there in the UK that don't know, they moved it from impairment to an arbitrary detection of 2 microliters, of THC per liter of blood, which is actually quite a tiny amount. And obviously we know that the cannabis, when consumed, no matter how you consume it, the body holds onto it. You store it in your fingernails, you store it in your hair, you store it in your fat cells. The body likes to hold on to cannabinoids. So it's kind of a frustrating disadvantage, as you stated. And there's obviously been quite a few studies recently. So the Canadian, was Australian? One of the country studies recently that came out, it was Australian, a study that came out that showed from their metadata analysis that saliva and blood tests were not good indicators of impairment for cannabis intoxication. Actually, they showed that a novice consumer that then smoked a large amount would register with an incredibly low amount in their blood, but could be stoned beyond measure, whereas somebody that then consumes several times a day, that has then left it for the recommended average period, which is extended for somewhere between 2 to 4 hours, whether you're in Canada or somewhere like I don't know, the regional territories. They're trying to work out this window of intoxication. And so obviously, as they're creating data and information there, I think we're getting more informed in this side of the fence. Everything that we've stated, I will caveat with saying that I'm not saying go and get blazed out your head and here's what you do. I'm saying that there's millions of people that, even if you have a prescription, you could still fall foul of these laws unless you know these defenses and you understand the system, because they're going to advocate that and argue that cannabis is the same as alcohol, and no matter how you consume it, you're screwed up and you can't operate. When actually, I would argue, and there's evidence now emerging, that people that consume it for various conditions and ailments, its absence would be considered more of a danger, would cause more of a problem to the road, rather than them being high, as it were, than being medicated, however you want to term it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you say, that's where they fucked us. 2015, where they don't need to do the impairment anymore. All they need to do now is get that, like you say, small amount in your blood, and then. But it's like I say, once they've got that, there's still a lot of routes you can go down. But normally, it does take a solicitor. Like, I kind of don't really know what I'm talking about here, but there's people been acquitted of that for sample issues and police procedural errors. There's loads of stuff. If you do end up doing that, there's ways out, but it's not defenses really. It will be a defense, wouldn't it? But it's not something that you can just kind of say to the police, or it's going to need a lot of looking through a lot of boring documents. Someone who knows kind of, you know, what they're doing really.
Yeah. Right. I've got a few more questions before we finish this, but I am desperate for a piss. So I'm gonna pause it right here with 2 seconds. Yo, that was much appreciated, much needed. We're on to the bottom section of the second page of questions. You'll be happy to know, folks. I suppose we're on the fun bits now. I was one of the questions that came up quite a few times when I asked on Instagram, sort of, what do people want to know? People were like, does it get itchy? Does the balaclava, does it get uncomfortable?
It does get uncomfortable. It gets hot as well, you know. It gets fucking boiling.
It looks thick.
Yeah, it's quite thick. It's good. It's good balaclava, but good quality balaclava, I have to say. But no, yeah, it's all right. It is what it is, isn't it? It's like, yeah, it's what you'd expect. But it does get a little bit itchy, I have to say, yeah. Whoever asked that question. Did
it work as a mask during COVID? Well, I suppose actually you've got the mouth exposed.
Yeah, no, it's like the opposite of what they want.
Yeah.
For the sake of when I was doing that toilet paper but giveaway sanitizer and all that, driving around doing that, I put a mask on for the sake of, you know, people not.
Well, it's in the optics of it as well, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a COVID thing, innit? I don't really know. I don't really say them again. Don't really say much on COVID, because I think that's why my fucking Instagram got removed, because of some shit I said about COVID. But it's mad how invested they are in it. That's all we can say, innit? Like, fucking mad.
Yeah, I don't. We touch some conspiracies on this podcast, and we go down some rabbit holes. But yeah, I'll say as much as this: the two where we have at least 45 to 60-second conversations disappeared for a little bit off my Anchor app. They were still on the various platforms it sends them to, but the app by which I send them out, they were missing from my order. I didn't have the analytics. So yeah, it's something that unfortunately I choose to stay away from at this point. Maybe in the future we can be in a different reality, but for now my fight is for a different form of human rights, a different form of kind of activism. It's what I can focus on. It's as a single individual, same as yourself, you work with what you've got, where you are immediately. Do you know what I mean? That's the ultimate form of activism, is just doing. It's all well and good theorizing and planning and all this what if and in an ideal world, it's, well, yeah, what can we do to work towards making that world? You know, and it's
the same again though. It's like the over exaggerated harms of it. Maybe potentially, you know, COVID's, let's say it's bad. You know, it can be bad. It's bad fear, you know, and it's also, you know, it comes and goes for other people. And it's the same kind of thing with cannabis, you know, where people say, you know, you smoke cannabis, you're going to get schizophrenia or whatever. Like, you know, maybe some people will, maybe some people will die from COVID, and yeah, there's a lot, and a lot of people survive. Or, you know, I don't want to say the wrong things or whatever, but, you know, like fucking.
I get what you're saying. It's the different people are at risk for different things, and different people are susceptible to different things. Yeah. So yeah, this we know. I mean,
when they overplay what the harm is, they make a lot of money. That, you know, them type of ones.
But they also make it more dangerous. We've seen this with drugs. If it's then a case of cannabis, according to kind of consensus accepted science here, and I say this as quotation from the head of the CIC, Mike Barnes. I think it's 1 in 20,000 people have a potential to have a psychotic schizoid type event reaction to the consumption of cannabis. Yeah. So you'd have to stop 19,999 people consuming cannabis to potentially protect that one person. So we can't have a weed-free world. That's an impossibility. They've tried that for a century. So park that idea, put your prohibitionist over here. The weed's going to exist regardless. The best thing you can do for that person is identify who they are, not to punish them, persecute them, but then go, oh, you might have an allergy. Look at it that way to it. In the same way we do with peanuts. We're not going to war with peanuts because hundreds of people die every year from cardiac shock. What we've done is we've created EpiPens and a system of awareness and tagging on products to ensure that anything that has touched a peanut oil or peanut product is labeled. There's then research that is being created. Ironically, what they've done is use really small amounts of peanuts, actual like the derivative straight from raw peanuts, and they've been building up people's tolerances. And what they're doing is trying to stop the anaphylactic shock. so that people can who have these allergies could be exposed to nut products that would otherwise have then triggered these cardiac type events. So it's an interesting world. Whereas if we then looked at the same with cannabis and applied that theory and went, all right, this 1 in 20,000 people that can have this issue, why is that happening? All right, well, we've just found out in Europe, 77% of people plus over, if not, sorry, at this point, consume tobacco with their cannabis. Tobacco and schizophrenia have a far closer causal causal relationship than cannabis does. So then if we remove that as a factor, okay, how was that cannabis grown? What were the circumstances by which that person was consuming that cannabis? Were they already in a heightened state of emotional distress? What was their socioeconomic situation? There's so many other variables than to just point at the plant and go, everyone's going to go mental off smoking that, because millions, hundreds of millions of us haven't. And it's disingenuous, but it's also harmful to the small minority of people that could have these events. And I don't believe they're solely caused by cannabis. Like I said, I think they're, by the nature of the mechanism we've just described, have to be caused by these other precipitous events. So the same is then true of driving. If we're then going, oh my God, there's these people that have died in autopsy who found cannabis in their system. You can't then say that they all died from cannabis, or the accidents, if there were car accidents, were caused by cannabis. You can't extrapolate out such a narrow.
Well, it's that again, they can't, but they do, innit? You know,
they do, because it fits their narrative. Whereas then when we can look at the truth and nullify through belief, as we said, through educating ourselves and becoming informed, we can present our belief to their belief. And if we then don't accept and we don't stand under any of the statements made by them, then they can't follow those procedures against us. And once we're on the level playing field, that's then where this conversation of challenging the law comes into play. Because that's what they've relied on for decades now, is all these new statutes and legislations and acts are all based on consent, but we've never been told that we're allowed to not consent. You know, without going too far back into the pandemic conversation, a lot of that is falling apart now because people have exploited the loopholes and found ways around it to go, well, I can self-exempt, therefore I'm not going to wear a mask. They've then found that the mandates towards vaccinations are not then legal and credible. So there's a lot of the things that were presented as this is your only option. And, you know, but it wasn't. And that's what the entire premise of the war on drugs has been. All drugs are dangerous. Every drug's going to make you an addict. Every drug's going to make you a dangerous criminal. And we're protecting you. You know, there's 10 guys pinning you to the floor in your underwear in your bedroom to protect you from the plants next door because, they were going to sneak in and smother you during the night. Like, what, you're going to lock me in a cage because the 5 tabs of acid I've got that I was using to, you know, deal with childhood trauma and the abuse that was caused to me by the failures of your system is more dangerous to me than the potential abuse I could face inside of your institutions. It's a mental.
Again, it's how they've made you think about it. How, you know, the substance is illegal, whereas like the charges that you get are, you know, it's not illegal to have used acid or to have used cannabis. If that was a charge, if that was an offence in the Misuse of Drugs Act, it would be illegal for anyone to say that they had. Well, it's not, so it's not. But the substances aren't. It's the acts that you do with them. You know, it's the charge isn't just cannabis. It's whatever, unlawful possession of cannabis or cultivation of cannabis. It's the whole thing we've got to look at. Look at the words. Look at the words that they say when the police have got to say, like legally required to say. There's probably a reason why they've got to say them things, because it doesn't stand up in court, and it's like a domino, isn't it? It's a knock-on effect. You go to one and
it's the dance.
Pull the dominoes out, it's just going to go and stop, and those ones are just going to be all, you know what I mean?
Well, it's effective. As you said before, when you spoke of kind of the judge before putting his wig on and he's backstage, they come out and it's a dance. Ultimately, is the steps and so you can you dance? No, well, all right, we're going to give you this person, and they're going to tell you, right, you need to do left foot, right foot, then wiggle here, and so you don't question. Well, why do I need to learn to dance? Why are we dancing?
That's an art.
Yes, you then don't get it. So you're so hypnotized into it. Everything, when they take your shoes, I mean, there's people that are suicide risks, but the reason they're suicide risks is usually because of the pageantry of the system. You've got them to believe their life is over and they're caught and everything's done and every bad thing, and they suddenly, a lot of people, when I mean, we could argue if you want to go down a serious conspiracy theory about how many people are suicided, but the prevalence of suicide in police cells is higher than it should be. We'll say that. We're not going to jump into too much of the reasons.
Don't go over to America either. We don't chat about that.
Yeah, boy. Yeah. So you'll lose your belt, you'll lose your shoes, you lose whatever. And so that all of that it's all part of this idea of getting you to confess, of you to make their job as easy as possible. Whereas actually what you're supposed to, what I would advocate people do in those moments is, I don't know, what did we used to do? Try and work out the highest number you could make out of Crime Stoppers number. Take your socks off and play sockball. You can do push-ups, sit-ups. You can count tiles, and there's all kinds of things you can do to stop thinking about thinking and allowing yourself to be. They'll sit you in there for hours, as long as they can, and then they'll say all kinds of bullshit to make you say something to incriminate yourself. The harder they try to fuck with you, usually the less they have. Remember that. They wouldn't come in all guns blazing if they hadn't. If they got a hook, line, and sinker case, they'll take you straight to prosecution. You know what I mean?
And you know what? When the police are nice to you, that's for a fucking reason. When they're sat there in them interview rooms being dead nice. Okay, yeah. You're saying let's say in a scenario, I found this cannabis in the park and I was going to bring it to the police station now. So that's what I need to rely on in court. So when the police say what park, that's not necessarily, I've said I found it in a park. It's for you to disprove. You go through all the CCTV of every park. I just need to prove what I've said beyond reasonable doubt in the court by way of putting the prosecutions, to proof and requesting evidence for any claim that's made. That's another thing that I say. Request the evidence for any claim that's made. They say, I think that's an illegal cannabis. Well, I'm requesting evidence for that claim, and I'm disputing it. And I'm also not saying anything else. I'm not saying it's fucking oregano or whatever people fucking say. What's that shit called?
I suppose oregano. Both probably acceptable pronunciation.
Yeah, because then you're starting a whole new fucking...
You're creating something that can disprove, which is what
you're opening a door, that's it.
Yeah, so as soon as if you create like a boxed off area that they go into and it's the only way out is back and go, well, can we disprove this claim? No, well then how long have we got for them? And it's about, it's maintaining that belief and that knowledge that if you believe it, and I can't guarantee that it works. I can't say
it doesn't work for every crime, this type of shit. It's for... because of how corrupt they've been with making the laws specifically surrounding cannabis. So, whoever in the government departments are allowed to grow weed, I'm sure you can look it up. It's been published on my website and everybody else's website. There's people in there making a lot of money from it. They've had to change some laws. They've not done the cocaine laws. You know what I mean? Similar things do apply, but not the whole thing that we've been saying here. Like, they can still forensically test these types of things. But with cannabis, there's a strict this one. And if these two aren't there, that's it. Like electricity, you've cut
it's an order of procedure that needs to be sort of carried out. I get that. And I think, again, most people, they get in their head that
criminal liability is just the mental element and the action. People should look that up. The definition of criminal liability. Mm-hmm. It's mens rea actus rea. That's what law students first learn, in university. It's complicated, but if the action and the mental side don't coincide, there is no criminal liability. But obviously they can prove things beyond a reasonable doubt. That's not the end of it. You can't just go in with that. Get away with anything and just fucking, it's not like that. It's the cannabis laws, using that with the corrupt cannabis laws, how they've created them in 2018, 2006, all these times where they fucked it over, or they tried to fuck us over. We just use that kind of in our favor now. Even the Misuse of Drugs Act is shit, but there are defenses in that act. Whoever wrote them put in defenses for whatever reason, I don't know, but luckily there are them because we can use them. If there weren't defenses written into the law, I don't understand why.
So I was just going to speculate there that I think, or what's just coming to my mind there. I mean, we've discussed this a couple of times, obviously privately, and I think what's just came to my mind there is the creation of a defense for possession, for cannabis and for drugs within the Misuse of Drugs Act, I think is an admission that there will always be drugs.
Yeah.
Because it means that there will always be a circumstance by which, without mens rea, without the mental element, somebody could have committed the action of being in possession without ever knowing it was a drug, or without it be intending for them to. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of other circumstances.
That is bang on.
All right, so yeah, I think that hopefully the content that we've already got here in this podcast, I hope is informative enough for people to understand how to research and become informed to such a degree that their belief would allow them an option to use some of the defenses that we've discussed within this podcast. So I do hope that people sort of grasp the nuance of that. Obviously, we'll share links to your website and to the aforementioned articles, so that people can do said research.
Yeah.
I suppose it's one of the other questions I did want to ask you was, who sort of inspires you and has inspired your work as an activist?
Well, definitely Banksy, always Banksy. I like what he's done. I like how he's kept it anonymous. I like that it's controversial. I like that it's political. So I mean, anything along them lines, I love. I like a lot of political artists. I'm not going to mention too many people because I don't want to give away too much about myself and that. But I do like political artists and anyone who makes music that's somewhat different. So a lot of artists inspire me. I suppose a lot of people inspired me anyway. Like, I knew about you before I'd even made this balaclava, you know what I mean? I've told you that situation, and it's loads of people, man, like too many to mention, literally. I think you take influences from different people, and I don't necessarily agree with everything that a person that's inspired me has said, but I might take a bit of this from that and a bit of that from that, and you become your own consciousness with your own maybe levels of compassion and levels of whatever you've got. And then here we are.
Yeah, and I think that is an entirely healthy approach. Too many people put people into this demigod state in this archetypal role that they have to be infallible. And as soon as they do something they disagree with, oh my God, they ruined my champion, my hero, my God is dead. Do you know what I mean? It's like, no, man, we're all magic monkeys. We're not that far away from throwing our shit at each other. And I mean in that both directions, historically and in the future. If we don't get this right, that's where we're going back to. So when you've got to remember that. Same with the conversation we had about people that are homeless. You know what I mean? Is we're all just fucking human. Yeah. If you can sort of, I guess, remember that, you can see things that go, oh wow, I really appreciate that phraseology, the way someone said that. I really appreciate that action or that artistic direction or that sound in music, or that hook or that beat, that lyric, whatever it is of anything. The point of it is everything is homaged and based on everything else. If you removed one of those dominoes, everything else falls apart, as you said.
Characters as well, man. People are inspired by film characters.
I'm inspired by a lot of film characters.
That's what I mean. Like, it's sick, innit? Like, they're just creations, but you don't have to agree with everything that a certain fucking character does. But you take little things, and personalities are kind of constructed based on what we've seen and what we've had, and everyone's different, and it's great.
It's a wonderful thing to, especially as I'm getting older, and especially being lucky enough to do it with this podcast, is the diversity of people, but the commonality. We often joke, people of my age, that we had one experience growing up, we talk about, I don't know, like the music of the culture of like your emo kind of skater revolution, you know, and it's the Kerrang and Scuzz and MTV as it kind of transitioned, and it was because everyone was directed toward the same thing. They channeled us into the same sort of experience, and I think a lot of people kind of got, I don't know, like monocropped. Do you know what I mean? They were made into nice passive consumers, and there you go. And that happens with every generation. And I think there's now a new fluctuation, a new a rising of free radical agents within society. And I think, and I'd like to hope that in some small way, myself, yourself, and others inspire others to continue to do this, to get louder and bolder. And yeah, I mean, eventually, I hope for the day that, I mean, I don't know about yourself, I'm kind of looking for a day when I can put on a balaclava, and I suppose you're looking for a day when you don't have to wear one. Do you know what I mean? It's I would look for a day of retiring. People, especially, I suppose I say people, mainly my missus, kind of ask me what I plan to do when the war's over, and I kind of can't see it ending yet. You know what I mean? I see these little victories, and I see these progressions, and I see these avenues of advancement. But I think that we only end it when we all stand up. And that what you're doing, what Guy's doing through Seed Our Future, what a few other entities are doing, trying to find these weak points in this legislation, and as I say, just nullify it to protect the people. We'll build what comes next organically. We don't need the man to come and
everyone doing their bit. It's just great to see things come together and get bigger and better, and things actually change. But I have to pick up the Good Law Project as well, because they do some sick shit, really like holding the government to account and that, and it's them type of little prods that, you know, empires always fall, as they say, you know. So maybe not the collapse that fucking Guy Fawkes had planned, but maybe in certain little places, like, no one's saying the whole law is bad. I think everyone reasonable can agree that there should be some small form of, you know, order that doesn't affect anyone's human rights, and, you know, a few certain things. But the law has got absolutely crazy now. Amendments and redactions. Oh man, it's a fucking nightmare. Like, it could be so simple and just beneficial for everybody, but that's not what it is at the moment. So it's these precedents and shit like I'm talking about. These are important for progression. You know, once there's a precedent, people aren't going to be prosecuted for it. You know what I mean? You don't have to change the law. You don't have to. You just need to set a legal precedent, and we're good.
Yeah. And so it's
fighting for that, innit?
Yeah, and it's getting enough people informed enough to then become aware to arrive at a point of belief that they are no longer subject to the restraints and the constraints and the persecution of the Misuse of Drugs Act for cannabis. And I think that when people really get their head around that, as you say, that then they're going to have to look to change the system. And when they do, this is where we need unity. This is where we need a conversation about what the hell comes next, because it's gone now, not just in the UK, but in Europe over the past, I'd say, 10 years, like from a conversation of cannabis is never going to be legal to when will cannabis be legalized by the European Union. And so we have an opportunity.
Like I say, I think cannabis is legal. That's what I think. It's prosecutable, you know, based on circumstances, like a lot of things, knives and shit, you know. But cannabis for me is legal, but it's certain parts of it are criminalized because of the traps that people fall into. Understandably, like, it's just hard to navigate around the law, like I say, and if you don't, you know, necessarily understand the foundations of the law.
Yeah, it's
like I said, criminal liability, them type of things. It's like,
it's difficult. So I was going to say it's difficult because I don't want to say that the sides, and I don't want to come across classist, but the victims of the war on drugs versus the perpetrators, the educations are very different.
Yeah.
The kid on the council estate shot in a couple of 20 bags so his mum can eat dinner he has got no idea about mens rea and all the rest of it. And actually, whereas the guy growing up on the estate, it's one of the first, the privatized estate behind gates.
Yeah.
They'll be taught that. So if they're, if you're ever caught with your cocaine and you say this, you do this, and we'll pay it out. Yeah, exactly. So it's,
you need to learn it. They just pay someone. That's why I say the justice system's fucked, man. Like a lot of these acquittals, people don't. There's a less than 1%, like I say, but a few people say, "Oh, how can you get an acquittal for cannabis?" Like that would be all in the news. There's acquittals all the time. I'm just proud of my, up nearly 200 acquittals now. I'm proud of them because I've paid for them, paid however much. There's thousands of them for stuff not like cannabis, for crimes that, potentially it would be in the public interest to not be able to pay a really good solicitor to get you off with the charges. It's fucked. The whole system's fucked.
Yeah, if you
more focus on cannabis.
Yeah, you want to look at acquittals, go look at tax evasion. It's all it is. It's a cash cow. It's to ensure that there is a perpetuation of the generation of funds, and to me, it's an impediment to class mobility. It is an insurance policy that the people that have been a victim to the whims of the ruling elite class are never allowed to truly participate in it. That even if they are able to gain their money through even crypto, whatever else, that they put up gateways and create regulations and restrictions to ensure that you can't own property and assets and you can't participate in their games. It's all very cliquey. It's all very you
don't actually own anything. It's crazy.
You're
the registered keeper of everything. Never mind just your car, just everything. You're just the registered keeper. It's mad.
If you want to look at the way law really truly breaks down, it is a system that, it's getting worse, I would say, by the week at the minute, in terms of certain different caveats being created. But if they pass the new police crime court sentencing bill and the new immigration bill, then things get dangerous, because they're already exploiting things like Section 60 at the minute, and the Terrorism Act as a way of detaining people for any reason. No reason. They don't have to give a reason. They can just do what the fuck they want. So we can't defend against something they have to provide no evidence for. So it worries me that this is why I present and have been fighting for a good two years since I wrote that call to arms letter for unity for what comes next. It's all well and good as getting over that line, but if we then are not the ones to build the next model and to help shape that, they're just going to replace it with a new form of frankly, fascism, of social control, of class cohesion. And I don't want to be corralled into being coerced into conforming to their bullshit. I don't want to be told what's good for me. I want them to provide the safest access to what is available in society. In the same way, they're not shutting the McDonald's, they're allowing them to open. You're not. There's coffee, but I can go unregulated and probably knock my heart out with coffee. Some days I swear I'm getting close. People that know this podcast will have seen me start it sometimes, physically jittering because I've had too many cups of coffee that day. You know what I mean? But nobody's regulating that shit.
You see kids, man, like that have had loads of sugar and they're literally having like kind of mad fucking episode, and the parents are recording it and they're like, going mad. But this is the type of shit that's probably not too good. Like, I have loads of fucking shit food and know it's bad for me and that, but like, I don't think we've got the priorities right. Well, the government have got the priorities right, because we know what's going on, but we just get prosecuted for certain things and not prosecuted for other things. And I think prosecutions, like whatever in it, just educate people, help people out to the furthest point. If that shit's necessary, like, I don't know, I don't want to go that far into it. Like, I just want to stop the stuff that shouldn't be happening, the prosecutions that shouldn't be happening, really.
Yeah, and when it comes to drug offences, frankly, I'll be as radical as you want, because I don't think any drug offence should be criminalised whatsoever, unless it is somebody physically forcing someone else to take another drug or spiking them or doing. If it's a consensual act, there are ways we already know. We could create fair trade cocaine. You know what I mean? We already create what they would consider to be ethical heroin. They just call it diamorphine. It's available in the hospital. But what they want then is all those dirty addicts on the street. They can get that corrupted supply, that tainted supply. You know what I mean? They allow Scotland to become per capita like the overdose capital of Europe. You know, they're in a drugs epidemic, while at the same time then prescribing opiums infinitum on the NHS as a way to keep that profit turning, to keep the lights on. It's a ridiculous.
And all the ketamine clinics now and all that.
Yeah, it's a duplicity. It's the same thing back to that kid jittering on Haribo. Yeah. We have that same mum going, I must protect my child from the dangers of drugs. And then they create a drug dealer in Haribo of going, you know what, if you behave, if you shut up and stop screaming and let me get through the shopping, I'll give you the sweets. And they see that bright packaging and then they light up and they know that feeling like, oh, I got to get high later. And they're like itching, literally like, You know what I mean? I've seen it with my nephews, you know what I mean? I've seen them grow through that when they were a lot younger. And then it's that mechanism.
There's too much, you know, too much for the body to handle type thing, isn't it?
But even the E-numbers are nowhere near as bad as they were. I mean, look at a blue Smartie these days. I remember as a kid, Jesus Christ, before I think the whole EU changed loads of E-numbers. Europe banned loads of the E-numbers that America kept. So there's a lot of red dyes, blue dyes, and a few other colors. And they found that these color dyes, they were basically drugs. They were basically fucking drugs.
I think it was the blue one, you know, the blue Smartie.
Yeah, so they withdrew it and then they brought it back. And I brought blue back, and everyone was like, "It's blue." And then they released the tune with blue, and people were like, "This isn't blue. Blue did something. I couldn't tell you what it did, guys, but it did something. Where's the classic blue?"
What was blue in the fucking first place? Madness.
So why did they lean into this? They should have released Smarties After Dark. And do you know what I mean? It's just a blue tube of old school blue.
Coca-Cola drinks had cocaine in it. They made that illegal, so they probably use loads of sugar now because that's just as addictive, but not illegal, isn't it?
Well, Coke's a very interesting one because it was what was it? Wine, coca leaves, and cannabis. No, wine, coca leaves, and caffeine. Sorry, and sugar. Don't know. Wish they had. You put cannabis in there. Damn, you got a drink, son. But yes, the combination, the synergy of some of these compounds by themselves, we're still trying to unpack. Like caffeine and sugar have a very complex relationship that we're just all as a society kind of going, don't give a fuck. It sweetens it, doesn't it? It sweetens it. It's a sweet heart attack. I'm fine with this. And we're not like
no caramel in that.
Yeah, and then let's put some cream on top of it and add to the diabetes. And no one's like, we're not having those conversations because we're too busy going, the 1 in 20,000 people that might have a negative event to smoking weed, the one person that's going to drown themselves on water because of misinformation when they've taken MDMA. The sensationalist bullshit and the rhetoric and the faux moralizing around the war on drugs is far more dangerous, I would argue, than the drugs themselves.
Yeah.
I think that what they're scared of most is they've lost the war on cannabis. They're losing it every goddamn day. They're scared that if they lose that, they lose murder. And they're scared that, oh my God, everyone's going to be shooting up heroin and everyone's going to be, and they're not recognizing that it's curious drug use is not a problem. Most people will at some point be at least curious of trying something, if not then actively exposed to it at the same time, like a Venn diagram of curious of drugs, exposed to drugs. That's a rare occurrence for most people. Do you know what I mean? So when they're thinking, I'd like to try it, they can't get hold of it. Yeah. And so it's, but
everyone can get older drugs, isn't it? It's harder for kids to get alcohol. That's just a stat. Everyone knows that, isn't it?
Well, yeah, the way they present it, it's a weird thing that drugs are easily available if you're in the right or wrong area, I suppose, depending on your
everywhere.
But it's knowing who to ring. If you could literally be next door neighbor to a guy that's growing weed and need weed, but if you don't know, you don't know.
A chippy and say, has anyone got a number? Someone you'd spend 10 minutes finding a number for somebody.
Yeah, but you've got to kind of know that etiquette. You've got to then know what to go. If you then go hang around a fucking...
Well, kids see on films and shit. It's not like that procedure's a secret. You know, it's like promoted, and I'm not against that, but like it's not like it's a secret. You get a number for a drug dealer, and then they get you some food in it. They come with a car, and then they've got the weeds or whatever these films do. You know, all that.
Yeah, exactly. I posed this question to Neil Woods quite a long time ago when I had him up in Durham for an event, and I said, "Did you not think the depiction in the media of how the war on drugs is fought then shapes how the war on drugs is fought? So it's art begets life begets art begets life, and it's just this morphing until we then drug dealers are acting like they're seeing on films. So that's then my conspiracy, or my idea at the time was to state that, well, what if then it's the authoritative systems are training these drug dealers to act this way, so that they say that they're the actors going onto that stage. They've already trained themselves and indoctrinate themselves into how to behave.
That's it. Who knows, innit? We don't know anything really about anything.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Well, I like what that Neil Woods has done. I really like his way of getting across. You know, obviously he worked in the police, and then he was undercover, and his process of realizing that literally was doing nothing. They were spending money on nothing. You know, they got nothing out of it. It didn't stop anything, and then to be completely, on the other side of it, it's quite respectful in that sense, because you probably get some fucking haters doing that shit. He could have kept that shit to himself, in it. So like, it's pretty sick. That. And what we're saying about the kids as well, I wanted to say, the kids who are having the sweets, they're not being looked at all. And then the kids that are needing, cannabis, there's a lot of children obviously that need fucking medicinal cannabis, and they kind of put out the press thing saying that everyone was all the kids were gonna get medicinal cannabis and need it, and it's just not happening. You know what I mean? Just another load of bullshit. Shut them up with a fucking couple of articles, and then that's it. You know what I mean? But it's the contrast to that is crazy, and I go back to what you said about decriminalising, all drugs. I do agree with you, and I had to be careful how I worded the defence, because I can't promote too much, but then I can say that, and that's fine, and take that how you want. But
I get what you're saying. So it's a difficult situation because,
especially possession, it shouldn't have been a crime anyway. That's I think, I can't remember who told me that, but it shouldn't be a crime anyway. It was misinterpreted, the whole possession thing, to start with. So I think people have arguments about drug gangs and whatever. I don't want to get into any of that. I'm just talking the people who've got any amount of possession, even if it's possession with intent to supply, whatever, just an amount of substance, and there's no mad aggregating factors, and it's just, he's been involved in madnesses. Like, you can still defend yourself successfully. But yeah, it's just, yeah, sorry, go on, say what you were going to say. I forgot what I was going to say. I probably said it there though.
You covered it in that. I think that's, again, one of the reasons why they would see your defense as quite dangerous, or anybody truly having an understanding of how Section 28 of the Misuse of Drugs Act works, how represent yourself as a litigant in person works in the smaller courts, and understanding the nuance of how to play the game. Yep. Because if you're informed on the situation, if you're informed on the law and the pageantry of how to perform, you're probably going to be more informed than the officers that detain you. Yeah. So if you can then stick to your guns, remember your script, and be your good actor, if that is the way you want to interpret what I'm saying, no, fuck it, that's flat out exactly what I'm saying. And then you conform to your own personal belief, then that vastly increases the likelihood of an outcome by which you would not be found guilty by the limited nature of the charge. And I think that nullification,
the nature of the law, like I say, the prosecutor's not bothered once you've gone into court and you've had a valid defense. They're not thinking about that. Oh man, I really wish I got it. It's just on to the next. And
even that, it's so insular. It's, have they met the criteria for this charge? No, then there is no charge. Yeah. And so it
could be on a database. You know what I mean? It could be programmed into a computer. Fill in this series of questions, and we'll tell you if you're going to be fucking prosecuted or not.
Yeah, tick box, and then basically it then gets to a lot of other bureaucracy where somebody helps you fill that in and goes, well, tick this, because they don't want to be charging us either. They're losing money hand over fist every time they have to get that courtroom and fill that stage and perform that act. They've got to pay their actors, they've got to pay the extras. It's all the clocks and everything else, and putting the lights on the stage and the sound equipment, and all of that costs them money.
There's literally microphones, isn't there?
It is, if you really look at it like that, and you can remember it like that, guys. They are not God. They are not an all-powerful authority and figure. And I'm not saying this that I'm defending all criminality, because I agree there's certain morality. I believe that violence I think it was George Carlin broke it down. There's one crime and it's violence. So whether it be violence is a form of theft, violence is a form of sexual assault, or the physical attack of another. Do you know what I mean? We broke it down through the 10 Commandments, but that's ultimately what I would say is applicable through into law. That do not do unto others as you would do unto yourself.
Like the common law position. I mean, talking about common law, that's misinterpreted anyway. But the common law position of what a crime is reasonable, and everyone would agree with. I would say, really.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that in this country, in the UK, that we fall under legislative and act law since the mid-80s, which kind of nullifies any correct understanding of what common law could provide as a defense. But because if they're allowing it to be misconstrued in media and allowing us to be presented, I say us, anybody that utilizes that defense or that understanding or that interpretation to be demonized or vilified or stupefied, if that's even a word, made stupid, made to look ridiculous from their position, because for all they're arguing a point of kind of a personal truth under their game, it doesn't work. They've changed the rules, they've moved the goalposts, the game's moved on.
I said there's a rule book, and the rule book is online on gov.uk. That is the rule book that you can see what the prosecutor has to do. You can see the CPS notes. You can see the Home Office circulars. There's a lot of stuff that it's not necessarily cheat codes, because, like a lot of my solicitors say, that they make money from people being, not being criminals, but being what's the word? Being accused of being criminals. That's how they make their money. Lots of people make money in this system before it gets to the courts, and then they get it back anyway somehow. Like it's all fucking, all that shit we were talking about before. But I think what I would really like is for it to be a document, a free, that applies to every cannabis. I mean, I don't know how dangerous it is to release something that would free up all drugs. I don't actually know what that would be like, but I've obviously.
I mean, we could speculate loosely before sort of moving on from this. Looking at Portugal, looking at other regions where it's effectively the same as decriminalisation.
Yeah.
But what it just protects the most vulnerable. It lifts the bottom up rather than giving free rein to the top to do what they want, because they'll still fall privy to tax laws. They'll still fall privy to, antisocial behavior and to consequential crimes connected to issues that would arise from that level of criminality. There would still be a moral stance within the community. It's not, the war on drugs is over, so suddenly everyone can do whatever the fuck they want. If somebody is high on a substance and does something, regardless of the substance, you've done the fucking thing. You acted an idiot. You can't just say, I was really stoned and I did no, you did the thing. So therefore you'd still be found guilty of it. So it's not a license to be a criminal at all. And I think that's what it's a narrative they want to keep as a contingent in the back pocket to go, well, yeah, but if we give them weed, they're going to want heroin next, and then they'll be selling crack pipes in the corners. And
we've all got access to heroin anyway, you know what I mean?
Heroin's probably more prevalent in most regions, and I'm talking from the classiest estates down to the most poverty-stricken council estates in this country, every corner. Opioids rule. You think cannabis is a large market in this country? We barely touch, 40%, if that, I think, according to latest studies. Somewhere in the region 55 plus is.
I thought it was a lot, and I thought it was a lot on the side of it on the recent.
I may be wrong with pulling that statistic. It is something that is new that I've only glanced once, so I haven't kind of committed to my sort of as a visual memory. But I remember seeing that it may have been opioids and cocaine, but it was opioids make up the vast majority currently at this point. But yeah, because it is just it's prescription pills. We've moved. It's because of the culture. Yeah. So the youth don't want to smoke weed these days. Like the young. That's not an act of true rebellion. The other ones that want to fit in. The kids that want to fit in smoke weed. The kids that want to rebel and take the drugs, they're taking Xanax and shit. They're taking these prescription pills that they're importing. They're all drinking codeine-based leans and shit.
Yeah.
And it's a different game all together. You know what I mean? I'm glad I grew up with the culture that I grew up with, the Coke canon, a bit of Rocky. You know, the worst you get is some scars down your palm from it blown up in your face. You know what I mean? Whereas again, the youth today, it's different. Or they're trying to be kingpins, and they're trying to set up and establish brands and regions and territories and take. And this is not the nature of cannabis and what it does to the consumer or to the community or the culture. It's a consequence of socioeconomics, people being impoverished and having very little employment opportunities. And I think what you're potentially doing and seeking to do with creating a space for the true, what I would consider, or term at this point, the true decriminalisation of cannabis, as in people won't get prosecuted for any offence, means they can build these industries. So at the minute, it's worth what, 2.2 billion a year is estimated to be the cannabis market in the UK. Can you imagine if that was taxed? So 20% of that goes straight into the government coffers immediately. Then you could put on a smaller marginal tax, which I mean, there already is. If we had then had the diversion, instead of going paying Amazon and companies like this that pay zero tax for their products, we'd then go back with the hydro shops. So we'd then be paying the VAT at the hydro shops, again, pumping money back into the economy. We'd then have clubs and cafes and shops that would be buying up the retail space in all of the major high streets across the country. We'd be buying up all of the industrial and commercial units to grow cannabis in, high quality, organic, community-driven genetics provided for the people. You know what I mean? We can already legitimize these industries. This country, amongst, same as with a lot of Europe, is going broke because of international drug gangs and cartels that are here undercutting markets that already previously existed to Dave on the corner. You know what I mean? Every street had a Dave back in the day, but all the Daves got locked up in the 70s and 80s. So then Mike got on the scene, and Mike was a bit more violent and he was a bit more thuggish and he got a bit smarter to it. So then the cops went undercover and they created this arms race of violence and villainy in our communities that meant that they turned your little stoner hippie kind of, yeah, I'll take you on for a couple of weeks, into a guy that's going to burn your house down over a fucking eighth. Do you know what I mean? They talk about the criminality. They made this.
Yeah, I feel like the fight is necessary for those reasons. You know, yeah, there's so much to fucking cover, but it starts at the prosecution side of things. I did what I say, it's just coming to my head then. I want to say, for the sake of, you know, whatever, I don't condone, you know, lying in court. Like, I'm sure you don't either. Like, you know, you don't have to lie in court if you believe something. You know, belief is a thing that's, no one can tell you anything. You know, not as simple as that. That's not the whole thing, obviously, but
yeah,
it's not unreasonable at all to believe that cannabis is legal. You can explain it's legal, and people get prosecuted for the wrong circumstance of cannabis. You know, that's what it is.
Yeah, well, exactly that. A belief is, if you, through self-reflection, through investigation, through research, arrive at a point of belief, that belief is true to you.
Yeah. And
unless evidence can be provided otherwise that you are lying, you are not lying. You are speaking your belief, which is your truth. In that sense.
Genuinely believe it's legal, and people are falling into the traps of the judicial system. That's genuinely what I think. No, like,
it's a corrupt law that is, it's designed so that if you know to say this, say that, not say this, not do that, and how to dance with it, then you can avoid prosecution. You can avoid a real major roadblock in the development of your personal and professional life. You know.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, I'm quite mindful of the time as I just glanced up there, so I think I'm gonna.
Aren't we?
Yeah, so I'm going to look on to what was one of the last sort of questions I wanted to chat with you. Actually, there's two.
Yeah.
What's with the video? There's a lot of people that are probably now going to click. Who's Outlaw and jump on your Instagram? There's a video of the character being Outlaw on a plane with some weed, and I was just wondering what the story was behind that one.
So yeah, I mean, the character. Well, not even the character, to be fair. I didn't have a balaclava on, and I'd be able to defend this anyway, based on the fact that it was in my carry-on luggage. That's fucking, yeah. I mean,
I suppose that's enough.
I think airport security are looking for bombs, not buds. You get what I'm saying? So I don't actually hide it genuinely, but on the basis that cannabis isn't actually illegal. But that's what I think in my head. Cannabis isn't illegal. That's what the government's led me to believe based on all these websites and the links, and there's loads of shit. Based on what laws they've changed and all that. It's not legal. It depends on the circumstance.
Yeah.
Like what I said, that it's not. I put a little bag with a piece of pineapple in isn't going to be illegal unless you've sprinkled a controlled substance on it, and then the substance contains a controlled substance. Or the plant contains a controlled substance, and then that's where it goes from there, isn't it?
Yes.
But yeah, man, like I like to have a little smoke ready for when I fucking land wherever I'm going. So it might have been accidental even that it was in my carry-on bag, but it's just one of them things, isn't it, man?
How did other passengers, because it looked like it was sat next to somebody as well, how did they
a lot of shit? Strap my little spliff and that, and then it's normally about 10 minutes later, to be fair, it's like, it stinks. So it must be the circulation on the thing, like genuinely it takes a little while. The people on the row are smelling it straight away.
I suppose it's not just going to go that little bit, it's going to get recirculated.
I don't know.
So as soon as that's kind of a good thing, I suppose, actually, because then you won't be able to pinpoint it where it's coming from. You said the whole plane smells of weed.
Yeah, no, but I'm not smoking it on the plane. You know what I'm saying? I'm not lighting it up.
But it looked like a fairly nice bit of flour. So imagine, especially in a vacuum of other people's farts, that nice terp profile suddenly is going to smell a lot nicer.
That's what I'm saying, man. People open cheese and onion crisps and that on the plane. It fucking stinks. Like it smelled nice. You know what I'm saying? People weren't saying, "Oh, it stinks of weed. It's dead bad." People were saying, "Yeah, fucking that smells all right." Is someone smoking a spliff? Obviously, I wasn't smoking a spliff. Genuinely, obviously, wasn't smoking. But just roll it ready for when I land in the airport. I like to fucking get out of the airport and just fucking light on my spliff, and then I get my taxi wherever I'm going or whatever.
Yeah, man. I've been
at that point. I wouldn't be in unlawful possession of a controlled substance. And I think we're in the air, so I don't know how the laws work in the air. You get what I'm saying? Like, if we're in whose jurisdiction are we in, I don't understand that shit, but I don't know who would be prosecuting who on which side or whatever. But
I suppose you would be prosecuted based on wherever you land, because you're in possession in the air, but that's kind of irrelevant because, as you say, there is no almost authority. But as soon as you land, and you have to land somewhere, so I suppose that's pretty shit. So if you then put, say, I don't know, maybe not Dubai as much as it used to be, but maybe somewhere still like Singapore or wherever, if you get caught just over the wrong jurisdiction and they choose to land there to get the authorities involved, you could end up flying from a legal region to another legal region and ending up in some serious fucking trouble.
Well, fuck it, we're here, aren't we? But it's like I say, it's not based on anything. It's not based on, I've got a prescription. I haven't got a prescription, you know what I mean? I don't say it's this leaf or CBD or whatever shit. I just say that because I believe that cannabis as a phrase isn't a controlled substance, and the cannabis isn't illegal. Like that some acts around it are, but prove which one was which, and then I'm not accepting anyway. So you can't really get a forensic report, and it just, like I said, the domino effect, based on the government misleading people again. Like all of the evidence is on the government website. Like it's like when I first saw it, I thought I was fucking. It looks like a Photoshop. There's no number or letter against cannabis, and be it whatever explanation anyone's got of that is okay, but it's misleading at the least.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I know that was a rough point in it as a conversation piece was some research around a Delta 8 variant that was done in the 40s or whatever the hell it was, and they tried to use that as then a justification. But if you look through it in terms of the progression through the international conventions, it comes from some very racist and questionable documents produced by the World Health Organization. I mean, the root and history of these things is, it's really fucked up and is going to unravel in due course and time. So where is the last thing? I suppose the last for new. Actually, this is two things. I suppose we'll try and keep this quite limited. Sorry, I've just remembered. We were talking obviously privately. Cultivation is still quite a really contentious issue for defence.
Yeah.
What you can speak of a hypothetical. What would you sort of say to somebody or offer as I wouldn't say advice, but how would I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question. If somebody goes about cultivation and they're then caught in that act, what do we currently know about the way the law works?
Well, what I perceive is it's a licensing problem on the basis that, you know, if you have got a license, it's legal to cultivate cannabis. That's why I say cannabis can't be illegal as well. There's another reason, because, you know, an ex-prime minister's husband is highly involved in a really big cannabis grow, you know, in the UK. So how can anyone grow cannabis, the phrase cannabis, or cannabis with a controlled substance? How can anyone do any of that shit if it's illegal? It's not. It's legal and it's licensable, and no one can get a fucking license because of how they've set it up, you know, because of what they're fucking like. So yeah, we just had to cut that bit out because I just keep accidentally incriminating myself, but it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, we've been on for a good few hours here, so you can understand this, and I think I really appreciate sort of your time and your effort with this. I'd like to think we've gone through the vast majority of this. I mean, people are obviously. I mean, so actually, I'm going to let you do this because it's kind of it's my last question is, what does the future hold? And I was going to kind of say about so your project. So actually, yeah, there's a question here somewhere that I can hybridize with this, which is what do you have planned for 2022? Kind of what does the future hold? So that, I mean, I think we've covered a lot of what you've done in the past. There's obviously links on your website. There's plenty of media links for what you've done. I hope that I've done the community a good service in terms of the content that we've produced here and the conversations that we've had, because I feel that
whenever you upload this as well, I'll be in the comments if anyone's got any fucking questions. I'll reply to a good few of them.
I appreciate that, because there's going to be a few points where I'm going to have to have cut this for legal reasons, which I'm happy to explain in lives and other sort of podcasts going forward, in just the nuance of the law. It's just boring, as we were saying, of certain open cases of committing sort of perjury or of just incriminating in alleged potential criminality. You know what I mean? I think that's sort of fair to say. I mean, I'd like to say that you've answered to a satisfactory degree with myself the questions, so I'm quite happy with the content we've produced here, man. So I think that I'd like to just ask you what you got planned for the rest of the year and what the kind of the future holds for Outlaw.
I think I've spoke about my homeless project. So yeah, look out for that, because it'll be really good to, you know, prove some fucking solid points with that. Yeah, I'm going to be releasing some music under Outlaw, not under my other name and that. So yeah, look out for that if you're into political music and all of that good stuff. What else have we got now? Oh man, 420 events. Yeah, we've got 2 420 events. We're going to try them out again. We're going to approach it differently and do it, you know, in a slightly different way, where I can get there without necessarily having all the stuff, and then do a little switch, or, you know, we'll call it a switch and a few switches, and then we're there with it all. So yeah, we're clean on that space. Yeah, so 420 events. I'll be doing that in Manchester and probably London. Well, I will be doing it in London as well. And if it's just after 420, because I do the Manchester one, you know, we'll sort out some type of like protesting. I'm sure you'll be down there. I
was going to say, it's interesting. Manchester, we call them the marijuana community, for several years in, is it Flats Park? Is that in Manchester? Or am I mixing up with something else? They do a thing on the Sunday of 420. The Sunday before or after, they get a big gathering, and that usually gets several thousand people. Yeah, so yeah, coordinating around those kind of events. Well, that'd be.
But I've never missed one of them. Not as Outlaw, but I've never missed one of them Plattsfield events, man. They're fucking sick. But I know the Hyde Park ones in London are good as well. So, but obviously, I think it will be Manchester on 420, and then we'll do more of a protesty type thing but it'll be a similar like type, what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, nice. Be good to get you down in Cardiff. I'll be leading the Cardiff protest again, and that's just marching from one park to another through the city centre. Against quite a few thousand people at the peak of it. Well, I don't know what it's going to be like post-COVID as to how many people gather, but yeah, that's a pretty good protest because that's the Million Cannabis March that happens on the first Saturday of every May.
Yeah. When's that? The first what?
First Saturday of every May. Although I think it's going to be the 7th this year, if I've got my...
Like a few weeks. There's a few of them.
No, it's all coordinated on the same date.
But just one Saturday in May, yeah.
Yeah, it's the 7th in May. The 7th of May. Sorry, the 7th of May.
7th of May, yeah, sound. I'll have to try and get the van down there and do some bits.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of amazing events popping up this country. It's really good to see people sort of inspired and really trying to come back together and showcase the talents, the skills, the unique and wonderfulness that makes up this beautiful community we all find ourselves a part of.
Yeah, completely.
Oh, nice. So what else can sort of people expect from
loads more madness. Like there's obviously a lot of stuff, and like I say, we don't know what the government are going to do next, so who knows what I'm going to do next, you know what I mean? I can't even see, like, it's quite a lot of my stuff's just a quick thing. Like the next big point I'm going to make is NHS people, doctors, everyone, nurses, all of that, getting sacked for not having the prick.
They've just reversed that, I think this morning. It was like yesterday.
Sound.
It's been a long day. I think that was this morning. Yeah, they've just reversed the mandate on that.
Right, as long as it's like not reversed it to a certain point of, they've had one, or, they can actually have none.
And I think, yes, a few people have really shown that is not legal. There's quite a few points of, without going back into it, that sort of narrative that are being discussed. And it's the same thing we saw with the war on drugs. If people can then understand the narrative of what's going on with the war on drugs and how legislation and certain people's ideological positions can be weaponized and fortified into creating a collective, let's call it amnesia hypnosis, then yeah, you'll get a bit closer to the truth. That's probably enough to get me off YouTube. It's nice while we're here, guys. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to to working with you on your YouTube channel as that comes to fruition, and hope to have you back as a guest.
That's in February. I've been filming loads of shit for that, and now I'm getting to the point. The stuff that I've done with the police, I've done it without the ballet on. I've done it with my mask and my hat, so you still can't see fuck all. But some of the stuff I've got with the police, I'm thinking, should I even put this out, because it proves a lot. But I'm definitely going to put all the cannabis stuff out, and really show that people can be empowered by the government's misleading legislation and all the stuff we've discussed.
Yeah, it's like legal jiu-jitsu, as I always describe it. If we can be informed in it, we're picking up a weapon. They've come at us with a kosh. If you go read that book, you go give it a little Google or DuckDuckGo and find out what you need to know. If you believe and come to a belief, and then use that belief, that empowers you, that informs you and gives you a weapon, I suppose, in some people's eyes, or a defensive tool to provide yourself the level footing to not be destroyed by this archaic fucking out of date legislation. You know what I mean?
We know the government is shit and all that, but the process of it, the government aren't actually involved. It's a very scripted process. Like we've discussed, it's not a mad personal thing to a prosecutor if they're not mad pissed off with you. No, it's just a tick box thing. So it's getting your head around that, and then starting to do research and take what you want from the research. No one can tell anyone what to believe. No one can tell really anyone what to say. It's just a take from it what you want in it. Yeah,
and obviously others like yourself can share that research and that information, and because of the nature of the beast, it's never going to be, let's call it baby food. It's never going to be universally digestible. Some people are going to need help eating it. Do you know what I mean? And that's not necessarily yours or mine or others' positions to do so. Each of us has to come to awareness or knowledge or a point of informed consent in our own ways. And so all I guess you can do is continue to do the work that you do. You know what I mean? And I believe that what you're doing is helping. I believe that these acquittals and that you are getting from the comments that I've seen sort of online and from my own eyes of being inside courtrooms and seeing how the system works, that is belief to me, you know what I mean, to use the word of the day. And I hope others I don't even know how long we've been doing this, having watched this, will come to the same sort of conclusion. And if not, there are plenty of links below to contact Outlaw and to look at your website and everything else to hopefully.
I mean, knowledge is power, man. I'm trying to help everybody. If people don't necessarily believe what I believe, that's fine. Like, that is fine. But it's just one of them things. I can't go past a certain point of explaining it and putting words into people's mouths. And but I'll do the best I can to show you what I'm saying. On some of these YouTube videos is entirely accurate, just based on that phrase, based on the the stuff that's in the document. But like I say, I'm here to reply to some of the comments anyway. I like replying to comments anyway. Like, people are generally just fucking sick. Like, I just rate loads of different types of people and see a lot of different things, like what we were talking about before, really, in a lot of people. It's
Yeah, same. That's why I love this job, love what I do here. So this would be then a perfect segue, actually, that if you also have enjoyed this episode, folks, please do check us out on patreon.com, where you can help keep the little lights on here for me. And I'm not saying that as a shameless plug. Support my lavish lifestyle. There is no lavish lifestyle here, folks. I sit on ass and do the work here.
Yeah. It's like a Patreon's a nice way of I've never took donations, but Patreon people,
it's more personal. If you're one of my patrons, you get early access to my work and you get a direct line.
Yeah.
We can then have a chat, and it's an easier way that
nothing, you get something out. It's like you wouldn't call a Netflix subscription a donation. It's like
exactly that. It's a
way of someone supporting you financially, because support isn't all about finance. But if they want to support you financially, like, you'd be pretty stupid not to let them, keep the fucking domains running and all the fucking, all the little bits.
Especially these days with the fucking energy price increase. It's all getting a bit, wee bit out of hand. But yeah, no, I agree with that sentiment entirely. And so yeah, with that lazy segue, I think I want to again thank you, Outlaw, for giving me this. I'm assuming it feels about 3 hours. We'll figure it out in edit what it looks like. But yeah, dude, it's been a pleasure.
Hey, it's been good being on here, man. We'll have to do this again as well, still.
Yeah, for sure. I think we've covered the majority of the questions that I wanted, the community wanted, I feel, and have organically arose from the conversation. So yeah, I'd love to then just revisit and, like I said, have more of a chat of kind of what makes Outlaw tick. You know what I mean? We've learned a lot about your processes, the work that you've done, and the work that you intend to do. But I think, in terms of getting to know Outlaw, in terms of the character, I don't want to say the facade, but the
character comes in when it's doing illegal shit. The rest of the time, it's basically just me, and I'm just doing my thing and fucking. You understand the situation. I'm sure a lot of.
I'm hoping a lot more people now understand it, and if not, can come to that awareness over time. And unfortunately, that same with belief has to arise from an independent action. So y'all go commit to that, and while you're doing it, give us a little like, share, subscribe below, and check us back out here next week and every week until, well, probably even after something changes, because I don't know what else I'd do. I'd be lonely here without you folks. All right, it's been a pleasure.
And I'll see you in the comments.
Yeah, get it Outlaw in the comments.
Yeah, man.
Peace and love, folks. We'll see you next week.
Peace.